Dana, like the top, from his nose to the top of his head. Let me add him to the stream. He looks so happy.
Hey, Dana.
Hello.
Hi, Dana.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, cool.
Do you hear him?
Yep.
You do? I don't hear him.
I hear him.
Oh,
You
that's
don't.
interesting.
You don't hear
No.
me?
So, oh, this is interesting. This is the same issue that I had with you, Nick.
Yeah. I had to leave and rejoin for
Okay.
some reason.
Yeah. Would you leave and rejoin there, Dana?
Yeah, but I'm on mobile. That's why it's probably a bad deal. Let me do it from my computer. Maybe I can plug in that way. Maybe this microphone on my phone is good enough.
I think I might help him. Hello, everyone. Depending on sound quality, we'll see if how Dana does without a proper microphone.
Excuse me for eating, everybody, but I only just got in.
Oh, grotesque.
Nice curry, this.
By the way, everybody, you're hearing my level and Nick's level, and please let us know. Let me know if I need to be turned down or turned up or whatever. How they are comparing, please.
Oh, Stephanie Plummer is in the chat room.
I see that.
She's already got the show title. I love old blokes. I'm not going to do an artwork for people loving old blokes, because as soon as I try and Google that, I'm going to end up with some XXX site.
I see that Dana's trying to
Frank
connect.
says it sounds good, but he doesn't have a lot of taste, so
That's true.
I'm only joking, Frank.
Hey, Dana.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not going to work today.
Well,
I forgot the cable that goes here.
you could probably. What hotel are you at?
Marriott in wherever the hell I am. It's
He's been drinking again, folks.
no, I didn't get into bed until 4 o'clock this morning, and I've been up. I woke up at 9 a.m. So I can
Anyway,
do it.
what I'm what I'm the point that I'm making here, or
Go
going
down
to
the
try
front
to make,
desk.
they usually have audio visual stuff at these hotels for like conferences and that kind of thing. Ask them if you can borrow an XLR cable.
Oh, I don't have the ability to do the XLR. I'd have to use the
Oh, you have the USB.
USB.
Oh,
'Cause I don't have the
the
XLR
scanner.
stuff. Nope.
Okay. Mm, huh. All you need is a USB to USB mini cord.
Yep. I thought I might have one,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a different it's a different setup.
If you had, let's see. No, that's a micro. I was going to say, if you still had your Surface, that would work, because the cord that came with that, but that was a micro USB, not a mini.
I'll go down front. Let me run down the front desk, see if they have any cords that were
They
left
might.
behind.
Yeah,
Let me
just like a
see.
USB to, and the mini is the little bigger one. It's small, but it's a little bit bigger than the micro.
I'll just bring it with me and see if
Oh
they
yeah.
have a box of
Okay.
cords.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll be back.
Okay. Get to the store, Owen says. Isn't this the plane safety podcast? No. Let's see here.
Ooh, Jeff's pet peeves.
That was
That's nice and loud.
extremely loud. Yeah, that blew out my ears too. What happened there?
It just doesn't often do that.
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, I don't know why it did that. My goodness gracious, that was
That's
loud.
obviously a big peeve of yours.
Yeah. Oh, I think I know what the problem is. Digital out? No. That should be. Huh. Why is it not seeing the headphone jack? Come on. That's weird.
No, Stephen Ivy is here. Hello, Stephen.
Internal microphone output. Optical digital output. Huh? Didn't even know I had one. That's weird. Okay, I need this to go through the headphone.
Haven't had any feedback from Stephen lately, actually. Obviously, his life is
Well, don't encourage
going
him.
swimmingly.
Don't encourage him, Nick.
Oh, well, I know. But
Is he listening to me right now?
no, he can't hear you, Jeff. So,
Just kidding, Steve.
I mean, it'd be fine if he just, wrote one paragraph, because the way he would read it, it would, sound like a page. So that would be perfect.
Okay, why is that not working? Huh. That is very strange. Okay, I'm going to have to restart this computer, apparently.
Oh, okay.
Not the one
Bye-bye.
not the one that's doing the stream. The other one,
Okay.
because it is not seeing my built-in sound stuff. If that makes sense. That's how I route the audio
Yeah,
from
I
here
think
to
that makes sense.
yeah, and I like it to go through the headphone jack, and it's not.
Stephen Ivy, stand by for a message. It sounds like something out of Thunderbirds. Excuse me.
Okay, so I got
Oh, I've got a cough button
Sound.
down here. Use it, Nicholas. Reach it.
quit audition, and I was going to set up all these things. So much for that.
Yeah, it works fine.
Quit. And quit. And restart.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry, I was being a little bit optimistic for the 3 o'clock Eastern start time. Because by the time I finally got to the hotel here, it was not enough time to get all this stuff set up. I am tired. I had a horrible night's sleep last night.
yeah. Sadly, me both. I was awake at 6:30, which is like
I was like sleeping for 20, 30 minutes at a time, and then would
Huh?
wake up. And
no good
it
at
was
all.
like I had caffeine running through my veins or something, and I had a fever and everything else. I don't know what's going on with me.
Oh, take the day off for you.
Okay. All right, everybody. We'll see you. I'm going to take the rest of the day off.
No, from work, you fool.
Oh. Well, I've already put in my day's work.
That's what I mean. I would have taken the day off and stayed where you were and spent the day in bed and then be
Well-
nice and fit for the show.
Doesn't really work that way. Yeah, I'm going to call in sick. I'm going to use one of my sick days, and hopefully you can find a captain to fly my flights today. But I'm going to stay in bed.
Good idea. Well, it has to work that way. If you've got to stay in bed, you've got to stay in bed.
Yeah. Okay, come on. I do not want to use that. Come on.
No IPA today, folks. Today it's Cobra.
Tim Van Ram, greetings from San Francisco.
Hi.
Well, you know, I was thinking
Tim
I
from
was
Cisco.
flying into San Antonio today, and the controllers, they always say San Antone. And I'm thinking, well, don't they get offended if somebody says San Antone instead of San Antonio? Apparently they're
Apparently
not
not.
sensitive here in San Antonio.
No.
As these Bay Area people, they're just so sensitive. Little snowflakes. Right, Tim? Yeah, how's everything out in Frisco? Tim?
Unless we could invent a new one and call it SOFO.
Exofo? Casofo.
Yeah, SOFO. SFO. SOFO.
Okay. Why is it doing that? Digital out. That is the weirdest thing. I don't
This
know
is
what that is.
like the first time you've done this, yes? John?
No, I've never seen this before. I'm looking at the sound menu, and it's one of my choices is digital out, but I don't have a digital out.
Well,
I
that
have
sounds
a
like
headphone jack, and it says built-in headphones is what it says, but now it says digital out. So I'm
Sounds
not
very
getting I'm not getting any sound routed to that track.
oh, that's very odd.
It's not good.
I turn it all off and turn it on again.
I just did.
Ugh. Did you turn everything off? And
Yeah,
everything
I
on again?
restarted the entire MacBook that is exhibiting this problem. Crap.
Well, is it at the other end of that feed, or is it? So, what device is at the other end of that, or is there nothing there?
What do you
Yeah.
mean?
I don't know.
Well, so it's seeing things that are connected to the sound card.
Yep.
Okay, the internal sound card.
Where are those things coming from?
It sees the XR18, which is the mixer that I have,
Yep.
and normally it would show if I didn't have the headphone or the cable plugged into the headphone jack, it would say built-in speakers. If I plug in the headphone, it says built-in headphone or headphones. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
I've never ever seen anything that says digital out, and I can't. It is not showing up on my mixer, so I'm perplexed.
Yeah, sounds a bit odd.
Does anybody know what digital out means in their sound preferences?
Well, it would normally be something
don't
like
have
an
digital
optic
out.
cable, would it? Optic.
There's no.
audio?
I don't have an optical.
Exactly. So it sounds a bit like a furf.
Okay. I think. Well, one thing that I
Have you
might be able
plugged
to
some
do.
earphones in?
Well, I do. I have them plugged in.
Oh,
I have them plugged
and I
into
can't
the.
sense them. How very odd.
And then when I undo what I have plugged into the headphone jack, it still says digital out.
Very
No, I'm sorry. It
very
says
weird.
internal speakers now. Okay.
Ah,
Oh, wait. Maybe I fixed it. Okay, hang on. Okay, start up Evernote and then play. So, because it's important, I have to play this stuff that I have in Evernote. Okay, that's coming over the speakers. Now, let's replug this in and see if we get. Nope, it says digital out.
oh, it's ridiculous.
That is the strangest thing. I've never seen this before. What is going on? Oh,
Dana's back. Hi, Dana.
Hello.
Dana.
Completely useless downstairs. I went
Okay.
to 3 different areas. They offered to call me. The ladies at the front desk couldn't understand. I just need a plug for this. That I just need to go through the box of plugs, and they want to charge me $15 for cable that would never fit this anyways. And then they offered to call engineering for me.
Oh,
So-
good luck.
It's over. I know exactly what happened. I took the when I went up to Oshkosh because I knew we were going to use the SLR cable. I took the other cable out of out of my travel kit, and that's where it is. It's at home.
Oh, bad luck. Back in the Mo, I'm just dumping my dishes.
Okay.
So that's that.
Well, I mean, do me a favor. I mean, I think we can keep you on like this, but you need to. Your volume is, well, to me anyway, it sounds a lot hotter than Nick's volume. So, in your settings on the StreamYard on the bottom
Yeah, I see it.
settings, click on that, and then is there a way to? No, there's not a way to do that. Go to your your top menu on your Mac, and click on the speaker, and select sound preferences. You see that? Hello?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
It's not.
Okay. So do you see the sound preferences? in your system preferences?
No,
Yes.
I don't. I'm here.
Okay. Go to
I went to the top, the sound, the speaker,
yeah.
and it's just giving me the sound bar. So I'm trying to go in the back way into.
Okay. Then go just open up system preferences like you would if you're going to look up any kind
Yeah.
of preference, and then just click on the one that says sound.
Yep, I'm working on it. System preferences. And are you freaking kidding me? Every time I click system preferences, it brings up.
Brings up what? You're kind of cutting out.
Close this out. Let's see. Close this out. All right, get out of that. Launchpad, system preferences. Yes. Here we go. Sound. Check 1 2. Check. Is that better?
Yeah. Talk again.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2 3 4. Hi Jeff. How you doing?
Yeah, that's good.
I hope you're having a good trip compared to my trip.
I must be. Yeah. So, folks in the, you'll just have to be careful with
Making
like
noise.
things hitting. Yeah. So you'll have to
Noise.
make judicious use of the mute button.
Mute. Absolutely.
Sorry, you're telling him to be a Jew? I thought he was already.
Oh, you're funny, Nick.
Ah,
Okay, now you're
right.
louder again. Maybe because you got a little bit closer or something.
No,
Okay.
I haven't moved. Oh, well, let me do one thing. Mute.
so, everybody, got a good plain tale this week, courtesy of Chris Postel. It was his suggestion. And next week, we got a suggestion from Josine Lafontaine.
Oh, I think I just saw her
I
in the
actually-
chat room.
Is she not?
Yeah, I think she is.
Oh, yeah, there you go, Josine. Which I happen to like very much indeed. I was worried I might not be able to find enough on that to be able to do a whole episode just on this one person. But it actually worked out brilliantly. I actually had to buy a book in the end, just for one chapter. In fact, just for a part of one chapter, where the author talks about her to try and get enough information. But when I did, it panned out very well.
Now that's talking about dedication. He actually
Yeah,
purchased a
that's-
book.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
I don't normally try and work from a book because it's just like nigh on impossible to see an entire book into 2.5 pages, which is all that a plain tale is.
Mute.
And
Well, I'm just listening to Nick.
I know you can mute and you can still hear it.
I know, but I was going to say something, but good.
And so, and I never have time to, in the short time I have to do a story, I never have time to read a whole book and see it and then, do a recording. It's just way too hard. But
Right.
luckily there wasn't that much I had to work on to extract the information.
Good.
And the book itself looks quite interesting because it's got all sorts of chapters all about different aspects of flying in the kind of 60s and 70s. So in very, very interesting people. quite a good author too. I think he's reasonably well known in America. I hadn't heard of him before, but then again,
Who is it?
Philip Caputo, and the book I bought was In the Shadows of the Morning: Essays on Wild Lands, Wild Water, and a Few Untamed People. So yeah, it's good.
Okay.
So he
I'll
did
look forward
one
to that.
essay. Yeah, I really like it actually. A remarkable lady pilot from an area of flying that you, me, and Dana, well, not so much Dana perhaps, but you and me certainly have never dabbled in. But I don't know how much bush flying Dana's done, but I don't think much of this style, which is very impressive. And the fact that she was a very, very beautiful lady flying in the 60s and 70s and 80s in one of the nastiest conflicts in the world at the time. It's really quite eye-opening.
Well, I can't wait. Excuse me. Oh, my head hurts too.
What I was
Well,
gonna
it's
what I was gonna
yeah.
say is I forgot to bring it up with me, John, and I had recently found it. John Bretsch of the neighborhood, lives very close to me. He had given me very interesting information about Allegheny's airline flight 736 and 737, which I wanted to go ahead and get to you when I was in Oshkosh, but I completely forgot to. He thought it would be an interesting story for Plain
Oh,
Tales.
what a shame. Okay,
Hey, Dana,
well,
can you go and do that sound preferences thing again? You're like extremely loud.
anyway, Dana, if you can get it to me, that would be great. I'd love to take a look.
Just leave that window open so you can find it. Should if you go to the Apple menu, one of the first items on the Apple menu is
already
system
have it.
preferences.
I already have it. I'm playing with it.
Okay.
It's open.
Okay. Well, move the volume
I
for
did.
your. Okay. Do it again. Are you doing the output volume or the input volume?
Input and output.
Okay. Input. No, I don't care about the output. We just care about the input.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Talk a little bit more.
Check 1, 2, 3, 4. XBL dishes, XBL dishes,
Okay.
XBL dishes.
That's better. That's better.
Oh man, the input volume keeps on adjusting on its own.
Wait. Is there a box there that says something about automatically adjust for something or other?
Uh-uh.
Really? Because sometimes, okay, internal microphone, because that's what you're using. Input, built-in. You sure there's not a thing that says use ambient noise reduction? Because that's what I see on my sound preferences. So it's input,
Input volume, input level.
yeah, and then right below input level, there's not a,
There's nothing.
and you've selected internal microphone?
It's external microphone.
No, internal microphone.
It doesn't even give me the option for an internal microphone.
What
Yeah.
What microphone are you using?
My Bose.
Oh, okay. See what happens when you just use your like unplug that. Well,
Then I won't be able to hear you.
okay. Well, I don't know why it keeps wanting to automatically readjust.
I have no idea.
So if you can just kind of keep that window open, and then when you see it readjusting, manually adjust it back down, which is going to be a hassle, but it's like it's horribly loud on my end. I don't know if the chat room agrees or not, but
I'm sure. If I hold it when I'm talking, I think I can hold it in the level we want.
okay.
So how's that for a level?
That sounds good.
Check 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Boston strong Boston. I can't even, I can't understand why this would do that.
I don't know.
Check 1, 2, 3, 4. Hello, Boston. Good morning, Vietnam. Now it's staying. No, now it's auto adjusting every time I raise my voice at all. Okay. It's really interesting.
Okay.
All
Hello,
right, well,
Steph.
we know the solution to the problem.
Now, can anybody hear Steph?
Hello.
Can now. Now she started speaking.
Yeah,
Okay.
I hadn't actually said anything.
Steph,
Well, I
would
did
you
say hello
leave
one
and then
time.
come and rejoin? Because I don't know why we're having to do that today, but everybody's had to do that. We're still working through this new way of doing things.
Bicycle, tricycle, test.
Bicycle, tricycle, tricycle, test. Say it out loud. It's brilliant. Bicycle, tricycle, test. What's brilliant about it? What am I
What's
not
that?
getting?
It's
Oh, here
probably
it is.
supposed to say something rude like,
I
I
know.
chased a bug around a tree. I'll get his blood.
Oh, no.
I've gone. Oh, I just reset then.
Yeah. Great.
What's
This is going
on?
so
Steph,
well already. Can you hear me?
Can you say
hear
something?
me? I'm
I
saying
can hear you,
things.
Steph.
Saying things. Jeff can't hear me. You can hear
Maybe
me,
I should
Nick?
just-
Dana, you
I,
can
Yes,
hear me?
can.
I can hear you, Steph.
They can hear me. Sorry,
Oh, I can
Jeff.
hear you now.
Well, that's weird.
Okay, say something again, Steph.
Say something again, Steph.
Nope. It's Skyping horribly. Okay, well, let
Am
me
I
remove
Skyping for
myself
anyone
from the
else?
stream and then re-add.
Okay.
We're having a few technical difficulties, Steph.
Yeah, I can see that because I really thought you would be
Hello,
like
hello.
halfway into the show already, and
Yeah, I was
Hello.
kind of hoping because.
Hello.
Well,
We
I
can hear you.
can't. I can stay for like 20 minutes anyway.
You can hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I do
Yeah.
not.
Okay, we can all hear each other, Dana. I think
Who-
it's Jeff is the only one that's having
Yeah.
a problem.
Who can you not hear, Jeff?
Steph is like,
Well, that's fascinating.
Well, actually, that's exactly what she said to me.
Yeah.
Yes,
And that
that's
exact verbiage.
correct. That's correct. No.
well, see, I need her to sound really good from coming into my machine because that's what's being recorded.
Well, I can only stay for like 20 minutes, so I might just bid you all farewell, and maybe I will try to join from a remote
Okay.
location in a little while.
What do I do? Remove.
I'm not sure he even heard that, Steph.
I don't think he did.
I don't think you did either.
I don't think he's heard anything that I've been saying. Let's see if I can get back to the chat room here anyway.
God, there's a little bug on my.
Oh.
Get off.
I can
Get
hear
off
myself on the YouTube stream, so that's good.
Hello.
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 We can hear you.
I hear Dana just fine, and I hear Nick, but Steph's is coming in just horribly.
That's really bizarre. It sounded
I'm gonna
just fine. I just
remove
had the
Steph. And then I'm going to add her back.
In mid sentence, and she's back.
Well, I didn't hear
Hi.
her. I don't even see her video now.
What?
Well, she's there. I promise.
I'm
you.
here.
Fine, I don't see
I'm
her
here.
on mine.
This is horribly entertaining. Is he just crying?
Yes, he's crying.
Okay.
I'm drinking beer.
Good.
Not
I'm going to leave
IPA.
town. How about that?
Not
Hey,
IPA, Steph.
And I noticed. I heard you were drinking a.
When do you have to leave, Steph?
Like in 20 minutes.
20 minutes. She said 20 minutes, Jeff.
I'll just go do what I have to do, and then if you end up getting this working at all, maybe I'll join in from a remote location.
I've run out of ideas.
Hey, Jeff, if you can hear me, she said she's going to join from a remote location.
Okay.
Because
Later.
she's only here for 20 minutes at max.
Yeah, I'm just going to
Okay.
go take care of the stuff I need to do, which includes packing for the entire weekend.
So she'll
and taking
rejoin
the
us
dogs
once
to
we've
daycare.
started.
Yes.
Yeah,
doing the show.
she's gonna go pack and get other
Okay.
things done, and she'll probably try to rejoin the conversation remotely,
Okay.
kind of like what I'm doing today.
This
Oh,
will
this
work
is just
so
working so
well
great.
once everything gets. And if
Yeah,
for some reason
everybody
you
sounds
can't
like
get
stuff
your
sounds great to everybody except for me. So sorry, but it won't make for a very good show.
no. All right. Well, I'm gonna go do all that other stuff and give you guys
She's still
time
talking?
to. Yes, I'm
Yes.
still talking.
Yep. She's saying goodbye, and
She's
she
saying
thinks
goodbye.
you're a big banana.
That sounds like something I would say. Good job, Nick.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. I think my presence here is just frustrating, Jeff. So I will bid you all farewell, and I will talk to you in a little bit, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Dr. Stuff,
Okay.
see, good to see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Hey, Nick, any ideas on how you got your camera to work? Because I can't get my camera to work.
I plugged it in.
Oh, mine's plugged in too, yeah.
Well, I plugged it in and then selected it on the
So-
settings.
Under settings, right? Yeah, it's
Button,
not
yeah.
recognizing it. I don't
Sometimes
know
you
why.
have to unplug it and then replug it in, and then it shows up in the
I'll
settings
try,
menu.
yeah. I'll try that.
That's
Doing
USB.
it again. Oh, well, whatever. Yeah, there we go.
You've tried restarting your browser, haven't you, Jeff?
Well, if I'm afraid that if I do that, I'm not going to be able to come back to this, this, for lack of a better term, hangout. Because I've never done that before. Because
Okay. Well, we're going to have to do it at some point, because in some point in the future, we're going to end up with a power cut
Okay.
out or something.
So here's the deal. Then, if that happens, I might have to actually create a new link, a new YouTube
Okay.
link. So we'll see what happens. If
right.
that's the case, then we'll put out a tweet. All right. So I'm gonna close the browser then. Bye bye.
Bye. Thanks for coming. And then there were two. It's the Dana and Nick show.
Yay! Now, if I could just get this
Yay.
microphone from stop moving, I don't understand why the volume is moving on its own. That is
Well, it's-
completely weird.
It's automatic gain control. It's trying to, fill in all the blanks when the volume goes down a bit. It try and adjusts up. It's a pain in the backside. You should be able to turn it off.
Yeah, there is no option to do that.
That's not good.
That's crazy. That's all right. If I hold down the trackpad on the menu bar, it doesn't move. So I think that's what I'm going to have to do.
Cool.
If I'm going to make it work, which I'd like to make it work because I haven't been on in a bit, I will do what I need to do. Got the camera to work, though.
Hey,
He's back. Hooray!
Hey,
It
well-
worked.
Dana. One thing I forgot to ask you when you were initially coming on. There was the settings thing, or just go to the settings thing. Do you have something that says disable audio processing?
Stand by, look.
It's in the browser window. Hello.
I'm here. I'm looking.
Settings.
Yes.
It's in the StreamYard.
On StreamYard
browser.
settings.
I was going to the other settings. Sorry. Disable audio processing. Yep, that's checked.
It's checked.
I just checked it.
Okay. That's probably why the volume kept getting raising up.
You've gone a
Let's
bit
see.
quiet now, so you might want to just pump it
Now
up
go
a bit.
back in the sound preferences and bump it up a little bit.
Yeah, I've had it the whole time right there, and now that I'm talking and it's not moving finally. So
Yay!
I
That
don't have to-
was
so
the
let me
culprit.
Let me turn it up just a hair. Is that better? Is that
That is
loud
better
now?
to me. Sounds
Bit
better
more,
to me.
bit more for me.
Bit more. Okay, I'll turn up just another hair. A cat's here. There we go. Is that better? I'm
Mate,
checking
turn your
one,
own Mad Dog and turn it up a bit more.
Well, don't go crazy because it's going
No.
to get really too loud
Okay.
on my end.
I'm going at a very slow.
No, that's fine. I can hear you now. I can
What does everybody in the chat room think about this?
I think
Adjust
they're
my
all
camera.
asleep, Jeff.
I think they're all probably all asleep too. Let me see if I can adjust my camera. There we go. I figure out what in the world.
Yeah, I don't think. Not sure, main man Micah. If if I can use any other browser but Chrome with StreamYard. So that's a moot point, I believe. Okay.
All right. Sorry about this, guys. I mean, it's not ideal for recording, I know. It's probably
No,
gonna say
it's just again, just
Mute.
judicious use of the mute thing, and I think it will sound okay.
I will not be joining the chat room today because I'm going to be focusing more on our internal webpage and data, so I can follow the show and
Okay.
making sure I use the mute
Okay.
button
Very
judiciously.
good, very good. And just a heads up, didn't have a chance to do the coffee fund people, so I'll do that in post. So we'll just when we hit the coffee fund, then I'll just play a little bit of it, and then we'll just move on. So we'll have to take that into account for the total running time of the show. That's usually about 3-4 minutes or so. Okay, now let me do a sound check again.
Wow. Brilliant!
That sound okay?
Yeah, it sounds good to me.
I hope that when Steph comes back that I can hear her this time. Any difference from the time I was on the browser before and then the restart? Any
You
difference at all?
sound the same.
Okay. I guess that's okay.
You sound the same to me as well.
All right. And let's go to this and play this.
And recorders are all on.
We're going green. We're going green.
Okay, and Evernote. Yes.
WAPG. It's the airline pilot guy.
Okay. And recorders are. Yeah, mine's been running for quite some time. In fact, I'm going to stop. And I'm going to erase everything that's been recorded so far. And then I'm going to go back to the beginning. And what happened there? And hit record. Boom. Okay. Now let's do our 3, 2, 1 clap thing. Ready, Dana?
Yep. I'm ready.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, clap. All right. Let's do this thing.
WAPG. It's the airline pilot guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 387.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the airline pilot guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy show, the view from our side of the cockpit door, with your host, Captain Jeff, broadcasting live from Studio 2C at the Holiday Inn Riverwalk in San Antonio. Today's show is recorded on the 15th of August, 2019.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the airline pilot guy. Picture light and he's flying by. With the airline pilot guy.
In today's episode, a fallen hero returns to Dallas, and a Boeing 737 almost runs out of runway, taking off in Moscow. More news, your feedback, and in today's Plane Tales, the disappearance of Miss Hobart. So get all settled in, tray tables and seat backs in the upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. I'm Radio Roger, and Flight 387 is ready for pushback.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast where we talk about aviation news and discuss the news, and we answer your great feedback. And I'm a captain for a major U.S. legacy carrier based in Atlanta, and joining me today to help with the news and feedback from his studio in the English countryside, professional photographer, former RAF, RAAF fighter pilot, former captain for an international airline based in London, Captain Nick.
Well, hi there, Jeff. I very much hope that the rest of the show goes better than us trying to get it set up today. A bit of a nightmare for you, but we're here eventually and looking forward to a good one.
I am looking forward to it as well. Also joining us from, well, he's at the Marriott somewhere. He'll tell us about that in a second. I've already forgotten where he is. He's on a layover, a long 30+ hour layover somewhere. He is a barbecue master, motorcycle rider, pontoon boat skipper, underwater photographer, and captain for a major U.S. legacy carrier, Captain Dana.
Oh, wow. We're finally here. It's been one of those days. And yes, I am in the Marriott in Chattanooga, Choo-Choo, Tennessee.
Oh, Chattanooga. Okay,
Chattanooga.
very good. I don't think I've ever been there. I mean, I've been to Chattanooga, not to the that hotel.
I haven't been to an overnight in Chattanooga since my regional days. That's how long it's been since I've been here on an overnight.
And that, just to let everybody know that's not familiar, Chattanooga, Tennessee is just across the Georgia-Tennessee border. In fact, Nick and I passed by it pretty quickly when we started our road trip a couple weeks ago. And not very, I wouldn't imagine that's a very long flight from Atlanta.
19 minutes.
19 minutes, yeah. I thought that would be pretty quick.
Right.
All right.
That went pretty quick.
Very good, very good. So we did initially have Steph with us, but we were, as Nick mentioned, we've been experiencing some technical difficulties, especially with audio. And for some reason, I was not getting Stephanie's audio very clearly. I actually couldn't hear her at all. And so she decided to leave. She needs to pack. She's on a great adventure, which I hope she'll be able to tell us about when she does rejoin us at some point. It may be while she's on the road en route to the airport. But we hope to have her back, and we hope that it's going to work and everybody will be able to hear her, especially me, because I'm the one that's recording audio. So we'll see. We'll have our fingers crossed with that. So how's everybody been? Nick?
Yeah, doing okay. Thanks very much, Jeff. Had plenty on. Lots of, retirement kind of things. I'm doing my photography. I've been playing plain tales into Evernote so that we've got always got one in store. Just finished next week's, which is a great story. Thoroughly enjoyed doing that one. And today I was down at the bowling green introducing some new folks to the delightful pastime of lawn bowls. But apart from that, nothing special from here in Liss, I'm afraid.
Okay. Well, we have Dana. You weren't able to join us last week, but you're here with us today. And let's see. Let's try to catch up with what's been going on with you.
Well, as our internal communications among us indicated, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of details other than the fact the last 2 weeks, last week's trip and then this week's trip has started off in not a very friendly and enjoyable manner in any stretch of the imagination. So I'm just going to leave it at that. It's been a very challenging couple of weeks for me since Oshkosh, and I listened back to the last episode you guys put out, and fantastic job. I missed being able to comment on my experience in Oshkosh, and I guess this would probably be a good time for me to just say that I really thoroughly enjoyed being there with everybody, and I second your observations as far as one of the best parts of Oshkosh for me was being able to meet the community members, everybody that helps to make this community so awesome to be a part of, and really renewed my feeling of pride in being a part of this show, and knowing that you the listeners out there are really paying attention and enjoy what we put out there. So that was, for me personally, real rewarding, spending some really quality time with the crew members, of course, Nick and Steph and Liz, and of course Captain Jeff, and providing some entertainment and some good liquid libations, which I heard you mention a little bit, and then of course the food. That was a great pleasure for me to be a part of that whole fun time up there in Oshkosh. So I just wanted to comment on that, and beyond that, flying has been flying, and very, very challenging last couple of trips for me.
Because of the weather, or what?
A lot of internal issues, weather, service issues, service failures, having to pick up the slack. I mean, just make a very small comment on the beginning of this last trip, round trip up to Newark and back, and showed up. It was a 3:41 duty in for a 4:41 push, and by the time I had duty in, it was already departed. It was pushed back to 5:15, and then later pushed back to 5:55 departure for 6:18 wheels up that we missed because we didn't get pushed back in time due to other issues going on. And then delay after delay, heading up into the New York area, right over the top of Philadelphia, for about 30 minutes, having to recalculate diverts. Land in Newark, and then fully expected to get rerouted to the overnight on the way back because we were almost 2 hours late coming back into the ATL. Did not get rerouted, show up at the airplane. They had swapped aircraft because the other aircraft had an issue. This aircraft had been and this was what happened on my last trip. I had an aircraft drug up from the hangar, and that airplane had I think I mentioned it briefly. I don't know if I did or not, but it had a lavatory issue because it was in the heat for 28 hours without the lavatories being dumped. That was the beginning of my trip last week, and I won't go any further than that. But anyways, did not get rerouted, ended up coming to Chattanooga. Then we get to Chattanooga, and we didn't have service personnel to help us out, and especially with a passenger that needed a carry-off. And I had 8 flight attendants. Every one of them was a female, and this gentleman weighs as much as I do, if not more. And I was the only able-bodied person to actually at the station that was able to get him off the aircraft, thus getting me back to the hotel at 4 o'clock in the morning this morning. And then I have to turn my schedule around completely and get up at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning to do 4 legs with a 5 a.m. duty. And so I'm a bit wiped. So that's the summation. That's as quick as I can possibly put that out there. It's been crazy.
Well,
So,
as
Sounds
commanders,
like a nightmare.
as commanders, captains, it's up to us to try to smooth out feathers and work with these situations as best we can.
Yes.
It's our
And-
job.
And I'm not going to pat myself on the back, but I do have to say that the flight attendants last week and this week, especially last night, going to Chattanooga and back, and Newark actually to a certain, a much lesser, but last night the flight attendants really acknowledged how much extra I've gone the extra mile in communicating with the passengers, because, what I did miss on the drag up from the maintenance last night was it was down for 2 days with an electrical issue, and they brought the airplane up, and I did the first flight of the day emergency power check. So what the emergency power check is checking that if we lose all power on the aircraft, that if I go to emergency power, that the batteries will power my instruments, the captain's instruments, for 30 minutes so you can land the aircraft. Well, I did the emergency power check to see if the battery charger was working to top off the battery. And it wasn't. And so, good thing I checked it, of course. A 19-minute flight, I think 30 minutes worth of battery would have worked fine. However, the reality is that once you get to Chattanooga, there's no way they could have fixed it for the morning flight. So they, had a rolling maintenance delay on that. It took another hour and a half. So, flight attendants, once I got to Chattanooga, and then I helped 3 wheelchair people off the aircraft, one being a straight back carry-off. The station agents just stood there and just watched me. Didn't lift their and I'm not gonna say he or she lift their finger to do a thing. So I got some paperwork to fill out, needless to say. But yeah, so that was the impetus of such a late arrival into Chattanooga last night, landing at getting off the airplane at 2:36 in the morning. So it was a very, very late night.
Well, we're glad you're here. Hey, do me a favor, Dana. I know you can't hear any of what you're picking up with your microphone, but it's kind of rubbing against your shirt when you're talking. So if you could just just hold it so it's not rubbing against your shirt.
I'm sorry, and I do apologize to the whole community. Part of the Oshkosh thing is I unpacked my microphone to be ready for it to be used in Oshkosh, and I removed one of my cables that it's required to plug into my computer. So I am using my hands-free headphones instead of the
Yeah, that's one of the.
normal
I mean,
mic, so.
it sounds good. It's just that it's one of the downsides is you don't have any direct feedback. You really can't hear what you're sending us through the mic, and that's the same thing with
Understood.
earbuds and stuff like that. They'll sometimes rub against stuff, and unless somebody tells you, you don't know it. So
Jeff, people don't need to know what I'm doing in my hotel room, okay?
that is true. That is true.
Yeah, we don't ever need to know that.
Yeah. Note to self.
Rubbing my microphone.
Okay, well, not a lot with me. Just flew I'm on a 4-day trip on day 3, and one more day tomorrow. The longest, toughest day. I know you're going to really have a lot of sympathy for me, Dana. We go from San Antonio to Atlanta, and then a Columbus turn, and then that's it. We're finished. So first day was a deadhead leg to Louisville. That was really tough. And then the next day was 2 legs, ended up in Memphis, and then 2 legs today in San Antonio. So it's a very nice trip. And, I just wish I could share it with you, Dana, but I just
Yeah,
can't.
my heart is bleeding for you.
I know.
Absolutely bleeding for you.
But, man, you'd be a very senior first officer on this. You could fly these kind of trips, too.
Yeah. After this summer, I'm actually very strongly considering going back to first officer because I've
Yeah.
had it. I mean, I've never been so beat up in my entire life. It's been brutal. Brutal.
Well, sorry to hear you've been having lots of issues. Hopefully,
It's just my luck.
get
We
better.
know that.
Okay. All right. Let's see. We were going to talk about Steph's wild and crazy adventure, but we're not going to yet until she comes back with us. So we'll put that. We'll move that.
Oh, I've
on
got
our...
one little thing.
Okay, please.
Today's plain tale was suggested by Chris Postill, who is, I think he has a handle, Stumbling Trout. Anyway, turns out his folks live not far from me, and he's coming down to see him this weekend, so I'm going to get a chance to thank him in person for his suggestion for today's plain tale and
nice.
have a beer with him over the weekend. So looking forward to that.
Oh, that sounds like a great time to be had.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, without further ado, let's move on. Keep this thing rolling, and let's talk about the Coffee Fund.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I love coffee. I love tea.
I love the APG.
Community. Coffee and tea, and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. This is where I talk about the Coffee Fund, how you can contribute to the show financially. And this is where I read all the list of people that gave us contributions using the Coffee Fund Classic method. You people are, you know who you are. You're great people. Thank you. And I believe we got another very generous donation. And when you actually hear the audio-only podcast, you'll be hearing me tell you about this person with his generous donation. And another way to do it is to become a patron of the show via Patreon. And we have some new producers. And again, this is where I would tell you all about them. But trust me, in the audio-only version, you'll hear. They're wonderful names. So if you're interested in supporting the show financially, please head over to airlinepilotguide.com/coffee. You'll be glad you did. And the music just keeps on going, doesn't it? Just keeps going. Usually I don't have enough time to do everything, but now since I don't have any names to list, it just keeps going. It's over.
Stand by for news.
All right, let's start with item A in the news folder. Wait a minute. Let's do this. we have breaking news. We'll do item C. A Ural Airlines, or Ural. Have we ever figured out how to pronounce that? Ural, maybe? Airlines
Well,
lands.
they're the Urals, so I would
Urals?
say
Ural.
Ural.
Okay.
Ural.
So Urals are like a
the
certain
mountain range.
Oh, okay, Urals. Kind of like a rural person. Okay. Ural Airlines lands in cornfield after bird strikes take out both engines. A bird strike on Ural A321 shortly after takeoff from one of the Moscow airports. It was flight 6178 from Moscow's Zhukovsky Airport to Simferopol. Not sure. Upon takeoff, the aircraft sustained numerous strikes from birds to its power plants and made an emergency landing, says the carrier. It came down in a field apparently a few moments after takeoff from runway 12. The crew and passengers were not injured, adds the airline. Russia's Federal Investigative Committee has opened a routine criminal probe into the event, stating that the aircraft made a hard landing in a field in the Ramonskoye district. It says an investigative team is organizing the necessary actions with the aim of establishing all the circumstances and causes of the accident. Images from the scene showing the A321 in a field of tall crops with evacuation slides deployed for multiple exits indicate that the aircraft suffered substantial damage to its engines. So apparently they took off. Reports are they hit a large flock of seagulls, and it took out one of the engines immediately, and then the other engine was producing partial power, and then I guess it was determined that it wasn't going to be enough to provide enough power to get the airplane back around and climbing safely and then back to an airport. Again, we have very little information about this so far, but is this Miracle in the Cornfield? Is that what we're going to call this? Not Miracle on the Hudson?
Well, it sounds like a damn good job the chap did, or the crew did, Jeff. So, yeah, I think any time you bring an engine in, particularly for a crash landing on the ground without any power, and you get away with, well, I think the report was 10 passengers injured, 4 of them hospitalized, but it sounds like there was no one died on board. I think that's a remarkable result. So congratulations to everybody.
Right. Looking at the Aviation Herald article, gives us a little bit more information. I believe now the update, I'm waiting for this thing to load. It's not loading.
Yeah, I mean, it will be very interesting to see what the media, while it's loading, Jeff, what the media's take on this is and how they spin it, whether they spin it in Russia, the same way that Captain Sully and Jeff Skiles, by the way, DFO, landed on the Hudson. So we'll
I
see
did
how
notice. Yeah, I did notice in one of the articles I was reading that said the pilot brought the airplane down safely, landed in the cornfield. And I thought, no, pilots did that.
Yes.
It wasn't one person that did that. That's one of those things that irritates us a bit.
Yeah, it is irritating.
I don't know why it's not loading. Oh, I know why. Because it's trying to connect to the Wi-Fi in my mixer. That's why it's not getting to the internet. Let me try it one more time. If you'll just hang in there with me. Okay. Now I have the article. I believe the count now is like 23 injuries, 1 serious. I'm not sure exactly what the serious injury is, but as you said, Nick, nobody was fatally injured in this accident. And from what the way it looks at this point is that the pilots did a great job analyzing the situation they had and making very quick actions to get the airplane safely on the ground. One thing I was going to maybe discuss a little bit is that they left the gear up, and I'm wondering if trying to think through this. Of course, Monday morning quarterbacking is so easy to do when you're not in the situation. But I'm wondering if I would have left the gear up or if I would have put the gear down. And I have a feeling that my initial reaction would have been to lower the gear, but I don't know. What's your thoughts about that?
Well, trying to recall my forced landing checklists, I'm pretty sure it included putting the gear down. Of course, they may not have a lot of time to go through those checklists, so it might have been a case of trying to keep the drag down as much as possible while he used that partial engine power to consider getting back to the airfield, and when he realized he couldn't do it and he had to straighten up and put it down into the cornfield, there was just insufficient time to get everything completed. So I suspect that might have had something to do with it.
Yeah.
Also, maybe at that point they didn't have hydraulics to lower the gear, and they didn't have time to get the gear down. So
Well, you'd still have gravity, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
so,
it's got a gravity
that's it.
extension system.
I don't know how the Airbus is, so I just.
Yeah, it's
you
just
have
a-
to do a lot of things very quickly, that's for sure, to make all that happen.
Yeah, I suspect they might have just run out of time to get all
Yeah.
those checks done.
I mean, in my thought process is, like you, Jeff, I'm probably going to put the landing gear down. I mean, at least, at the very least, the struts can absorb some of the impact and help the structure of the aircraft to be better intact. And then, of course, with an Airbus or any aircraft with the pods underneath the wing, I would think, all right, well, do I really want to try to land the airplane with these pods that might grab onto whatever it's hitting, and then start tumbling the aircraft? So that would be another consideration. So that's another reason why I think I would make sure I put down the landing gear.
Yeah, I think that would have been an automatic reaction on my part. I mean, I don't even think I would have discussed it. I would have just reached over and put the gear handle down. But again, that's just what I think I would have done. I really don't know. I've never been in that situation. So, I might be so shocked by what was happening there that I may not have even thought of it. So
Yeah.
again, we don't want to sound like we're second guessing at all, because we know very little so far. And what we do know is the fact that nobody died in this incident. And that's a good thing. It's a great
Yeah,
thing.
That's a great thing.
It's a credit to the strength and design of the aircraft, just as Boeing's have crash landed and been very successful. Airbus seem to have built an equally robust product, so that's good to see.
All right, let's move on to item A. And this is a link to the Twitter account of a Jackson Proskow, Proskow, And, excuse me, let me read a little bit of his writing. He's the Washington bureau chief for Global News. For reporters, the flight home is often a chance to decompress. It's the first opportunity to reflect on a story and process our emotions. It's the point at which we step back from our deadlines and from the pressure. It's the point at which it can all sink in. This week, the long flight home took me from the devastating shooting in El Paso, Texas, to Washington, D.C., with a layover in Dallas. Dallas became the place where the weight of the world seemed to melt away, the place where the good outweighed the bad for the first time in days. When we arrived at our gate at Dallas's Love Field, I noticed a few camera crews waiting. I didn't think much of it. Perhaps they were waiting for a politician or a newsmaker. A few minutes later, a gate agent from Southwest Airlines appeared and started handing out American flags. Then came the announcement over the PA system. A gate agent, his voice cracking, told us about the very special arrival we were about to witness. Our inbound plane from Oakland was carrying the remains of an American airman, Colonel Roy Knight, Jr., who was shot down in combat during the Vietnam War in 1967. The agent took a long pause as he seemed to collect his words. Colonel Knight ejected from his aircraft, but no parachute was seen deploying, he explained. A search was undertaken, but could not find him. The agent again took a long pause before explaining that recently his remains were discovered, identified, and returned to the United States. Today, Colonel Knight is coming home to Dallas, said the agent, growing more emotional as he continued explaining what we were about to witness. At that point, we were told that before deploying, Colonel Knight had said farewell to his family at this very airport. He waved goodbye to his 5-year-old son. It would be the last time he would see any of them. By this point in the story, the terminal had fallen silent. TSA agents stood solemnly in a line near the gate. The gate agent held the microphone in his hands, taking a long pause and a deep breath. He struggled to say what came next. Today, the pilot of the plane bringing Colonel Knight home is his son. There were quiet gasps. A few people burst into tears. We were told that the aircraft would arrive in about 15 minutes. The crowd grew larger with noses pressed up to the glass for a view of the gate. As Flight 1220 from Oakland taxied toward the jet bridge, 2 airport fire trucks provided a somber water salute while the ground crew stood in formation. We all watched silently as the flag-draped casket was unloaded from the cargo hold, met by what we could only assume to be Colonel Knight's family and a military guard. Airports rarely see moments of quiet, but for a few brief minutes, Dallas Love Field fell absolutely silent. There were no garbled announcements, no clickety-clack of rolling suitcases over the floor, no shouting over cell phones. People stood quietly at the window, wiping away tears, taking in a moment few rarely get to see. Okay, so it's starting to get to me. So let me play a little bit of audio that Southwest Airlines actually put together. This is actually a video. We'll have a link to that. So you can watch the video, and this is only an excerpt from the audio from this video.
Right there. At the end of the war, I remember as a kid watching every single POW come off those airplanes, and I watched every one of them. Your job and your duty as a family and as a child is to have hope. But as a kid, what you really think is if you don't do that, you're somehow going to be responsible for him being lost.
As you probably noticed, a little bit of activity going on the right side of the aircraft. He's taking one of our servicemen home to Dallas. 52 years in coming. This particular serviceman was lost
January of 1967, the last time I saw my father, I was 5 years old, and that was at Love Field in Dallas, Texas. When I first got the call, you know, it was almost surreal because I really didn't think it would ever happen. Wow, you know, he's really coming home. We're going to be able to bring him back, and we're going to have a place where we can honor him.
Southwest 1220, we got a message for you.
I'm ready, sir.
On behalf of Regional Approach, we welcome your father, Colonel Knight, home. While he's gone, he will never be forgotten.
It's very touching, you know, everything that I've gotten from all the people at Southwest Airlines that have done so much to make this happen. It's been overwhelming.
The pilot that flew you in today was that same 5-year-old boy who was left here at Love Field 52 years ago with his dad to say goodbye.
The support and all that's happened, you know, it's just been phenomenal. And I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of my company right now. I'm so proud of Southwest Airlines for what they've done to make this happen. Oh my gosh, thank you.
Okay, again, that was produced by Southwest Airlines, and a very, very touching story. And we'll have more information about Colonel Knight and what happened to him in the Vietnam War, and that'll all be in the show notes.
That really tugs at the heartstrings, that, doesn't it, Jeff? What an amazing story for his son to be able to fly him back to the point of his departure all those years later.
Yeah.
Some stories you'll never forget in life, and that'll be one of them for sure.
That is for sure. Okay, moving on to item B. An S7 Airlines. This is from the samchewy.com. S7 Boeing 737 almost ran out of runway during takeoff at Moscow Airport. Let's see. They were operating flight 263 from Moscow Domodedovo to that other airport that this Ural A321 was heading. Didn't quite make it. Almost ran out of runway during the takeoff. After it overran the end of the runway 32 left, the aircraft continued the scheduled flight and landed to Simferopol 2 hours and 10 minutes later. A later runway inspection at Moscow's Domodedovo Airport found that 5 lighting units were destroyed during the takeoff, with broken glass scattered all around. After arriving in Simferopol, do you have a better way to pronounce that, Nick? Simferopol? That's how
No, I don't. I always used to call it Smurf pole, but that's not how you're
Smurf pole.
supposed to pronounce
That's not it.
No, I know.
Okay. The 737 was submitted to an inspection that showed 3 tires had been damaged and the landing gear had glass embedded. The cause of the incident is not yet confirmed. Some Russian aviation websites report that the crew computed takeoff performance using a takeoff weight 15 tons below the real weight, 30,000 pounds-ish, a little bit off. Another claims that the crew inadvertently entered 0 fuel weight instead of the takeoff weight. The incident, which could have ended in tragedy for the 150 people on board, occurred early on Monday and was caught on the closed circuit TV cameras of the Domodedovo airport. I think I have that in here somewhere, so I don't have to keep saying that. Yeah, oh well. And there's a video that you'll see in the show notes. I have a still from the video. It looks like it's a video that someone's taken of the CCTV screen. And did you guys get a chance to watch the video? Because it's an eye opener.
It is.
Is this the one where the guy sort of got the nose up and then just sat in the runway, then he put the nose back down again, and then eventually got it back up a second time and staggered airborne?
Well, I think he never lowered the nose again. I think that was another one that
Really?
happened months ago.
Okay.
This one, he kind of just kept it there, and same kind of an angle of attack, or pitch angle, and then he goes right off the end of it, and then there's a point where you can see. I think the tires are actually in the dirt or something. They're like making a yeah. You need to watch that little link there, that IMG 2489.trim movie.
I will, sir.
Yeah,
I watched it, and he throws up a dust storm. What I'm amazed at, in looking at this, I mean, it's really hard to tell, but I don't see any sparks. That his tail wasn't dragging with the deck angle that he had
Right.
of this aircraft, wasn't dragging on the runway. I don't
Yeah, I
see any
didn't-
sparks.
I didn't either. Even when it was kind of throwing up the dirt off the end of the runway, I didn't see anything coming from the tail area. But anyway, it was a very, very close one for that flight. They barely got away with that. Well, I guess they really didn't get away, but at least they didn't crash. So I'm sure that will be investigated by the Rosafatsia, the Russian aviation investigatory agency.
Oh, yeah. He's in the dirt, isn't he? Definitely.
Are you watching it?
Yeah, I just have. Wow. That's a
like,
different one from the one I saw, because
Yeah.
I was about to say, that's the one where he probably forgot to put his flaps down and put his flaps down halfway, in this sort of overrun. But no, this is quite a different one. So they're not having a good time, the Russians at the moment, are they?
No, they're not. What is it? Three's a charm? That was
Yeah.
number 2. Hopefully, I don't know. Maybe something else has happened we just don't know about, and
Yeah.
can move on. Speaking of moving on, item D, our Norwegian Boeing 787 engine debris falls near Fiumicino. Fiumicino? Is it the way you say that? I'm not Italian.
Fiumicino.
Fiumicino, the airport of Rome, or one of Rome's airports. A Norwegian Boeing 787 damaged cars and roofs in the vicinity of Rome's airport when they fell off the plane after its takeoff on Saturday, the 10th of August. Now, it was a Boeing 787, but we have to also point out that the engine was a Rolls-Royce Trent, what is it, 1,000?
Yep.
Not sure. But anyway, it's not the first time that they've had issues with that engine. And yeah, there's a picture here of a police car's windscreen, I guess rear windshield, completely shattered, and somebody holding a handful of shrapnel in their hand. And it's kind of a minor miracle that nobody got hit by one of these things and got taken out.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, to explain to the listeners, the Trent 1000 on the Dreamliners, the Rolls-Royce engine, has been suffering from excessive blade erosion and cracking. And as a result, a number of the aircraft have been grounded for some time, waiting for modified and replacement engine parts to make up for this problem they've encountered. And in the meantime, those engines that have been allowed to continue are supposed to be getting very regular boroscopes to ensure that the blades are fit to continue in flight. Now, that's a judgment call to a certain extent, and I know for a fact that some of these aircraft, if you and I had seen those blades and that had been declared fit, Jeff, we would probably be hanging up our flight bag and going, nah, I don't think I want to fly that one, thank you very much. But the engineers have, been saying, well, they passed the test, so the aircraft's fit to go. But of course, we have had a few instances where those blades have actually failed, and then what happens is when a blade fails is there's kind of a cascade because the blade will move further back down the engine, and the debris of the damaged blade that's come off will strike more blades, and they will break free, and they will strike more blades until you end up with half the engine being pooed out the back. It's just a mess of screaming hot metal that then falls to the earth. Now, it usually doesn't fall very fast because they're not huge chunks of metal. They're very quite little blades. You can see from the picture that they're only a few inches across. But they are extremely hot, and they're certainly coming down with enough force to break windows and things. So, they could definitely cause injury and possibly even death. So when you get a shower of these blades coming out of an airliner, and it's not, of course, just this engine or just this aircraft that has suffered this problem over the years. Many aircraft have had multiple blade failures that have showered to the ground. This one is dramatic because it happened right over a car park with lots of people, and there was a fair amount of damage done.
Yeah.
Are you trying to say that metal debris falling from the sky would fall gently?
Well, if it's small, yeah. I mean, you've heard of the theory that if you throw a penny from the Empire State Building, it'll kill someone. Well, that's absolutely not true. If the debris is light enough, it falls at its terminal velocity, and if that velocity isn't very high, then it won't do a lot of damage. So that's all I'm saying.
Okay. I was going to say, because I don't care how slowly that metal falls. If it hits human beings, the soft flesh of human beings, it's going to do some significant damage, if not kill somebody.
Yeah, it might. But on the other hand, the smaller bits won't. It depends which bit hits you, I guess.
Bits is bits.
Bit.
I do apologize. Apparently, I was saying something, and all of a sudden, I hear you guys having some kind of discussion about pennies falling from buildings. I went, what? Where did that come from? So
Yeah, we were having a religious discussion again, Jeff.
Pennies from heaven?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. We might have to reconsider this platform.
You do know how copper wire was invented, correct?
Yes, two pilots were arguing, trying to pry a penny from each other.
That's correct.
Yeah. Bam. Here we go. Can't find it. Here we go. Okay.
I think the old adage is two L-1011 captains fighting over a penny.
On the other hand, did I ever tell you the story about this L-1011 captain that a good friend of mine used to fly with all the time? And apparently he lived down in Miami and owned a high-end bicycle shop with campy components and all the fancy Italian lightweight frames and all that kind of stuff. And apparently was doing pretty well for himself with the business, and flying airplanes was just kind of a hobby for him. And nobody quite understood exactly what that meant until on one particular trip, my friend Ken said that the captain knocked over his flight kit, and out from his flight kit spilled probably a dozen or two orange envelopes. And that was back in the day before we had direct deposit. And the envelopes had checks in there every, bi-monthly. And so he said that there was at least, at least 6 months worth of checks that had spilled from unopened, by the way, unopened orange envelopes. And that's when he realized that, this is really truly just a hobby for this captain, because he wasn't even cashing his checks. And that was back in the day. The L-1011 captains made a lot of money. A lot of money.
And if people don't know, the orange envelope was synonymous with Acme through all the departments. We'd all wait for that tray of envelopes come in every first and 15th of the month, or no, 15th and 30th of the month. And for years, actually, I think I still have a few of those envelopes in my house. But yeah, that's how our paychecks used to come.
Yeah. And for the longest time, they still came that way, but they weren't actual checks in there. They were just kind of like records of what was deposited in your, direct deposit account. Yeah, so those days are pretty much over now, I guess. I would imagine that you could probably still get. No, you probably can't. You probably
probably
say
not.
no. The only way you're going to get paid is if we have a direct link to your bank account. Anyway, that kind of blew me away. That would have been a heck of a lot of money that the guy had in his flight kit that he hadn't bothered to cash. All right. Item E. Meet the first female Marine assigned to fly the F-35C. First Lieutenant Catherine Stark is the first female Marine to be assigned to the Navy's F-35C Fleet Replacement Squadron, FRS. Erie, Pennsylvania native First Lieutenant Catherine Stark earned her wings Friday at a ceremony in Kingsville, Texas, and in doing so became the first female Marine to be assigned to the U.S. Navy's F-35C Fleet Replacement Squadron. The F-35 Lightning II, designed and built by Lockheed Martin, is a fifth-generation fighter designed to replace the F-18 in the Navy and Marine Corps and the F-22 in the U.S. Air Force. I didn't know that, actually. I thought they were going to work together, but okay. Of the three models, the F-35C is designed specifically to take off and land on aircraft carriers. And talks a little bit about First Lieutenant Stark. They kind of interview her dad. He said, "It's incredible. She's just an amazing girl. She's got all areas covered." And anyway, up until now, they were only taking F-18 pilots that were already out in the fleet, someone with a lot of experience, and they were sending them back to school for 6 months and then transitioning them to the F-35, she said Tuesday during a telephone interview. But recently, they've been picking people right out of flight school. That's been the special thing. Up until now, people fresh out of flight school with no fleet experience, like myself. I haven't been to a squadron yet because I just finished flight school. We didn't have the opportunity to select the F-35. Anyway, very interesting little interview of First Lieutenant Stark. And at some point here, she kind of basically downplays the whole thing. And she goes, I really don't know what the big deal is. But she must be an awfully good pilot to have made the grade to fly the F-35C, I would think. So she's probably just being modest.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure they picked the best for the job, and I'm sure she's the best pilot they've got.
Yeah. All right. And finally, United Airlines now tells their pilots no drinking for 12 hours before your shift starts. 1 week after two pilots were arrested in Scotland for failing an alcohol breath test before operating a flight, UA has tightened rules for when pilots must stop drinking before they report to duty, according to a new bulletin. The airline's pilots now must make or take their final sip of alcohol 12 hours before their pre-departure duty period begins. Now, that's kind of worded interestingly. I don't think they're required to take a sip of alcohol 12 hours prior. But if they happen to be drinking, they have to stop at that point, right? Like, what if you don't drink? You're still forced to.
Yeah, you have to. Everyone has to have some alcohol 12 hours before they fly.
Yeah, because it says there right there.
Yeah,
The airline's
absolutely.
pilots now must take their final sip 12 hours before their pre-departure duty.
Absolutely.
Anyway, before Saturday, pilots were allowed 8 hours from their final drink to the start of their work period, a period the industry calls bottle to throttle. This policy is being changed to help assure pilot compliance with standards established by the United States and individual states where United operates around the world. United's policy is now more stringent than required by the Federal Aviation Administration, which has an 8-hour bottle to throttle mandate and a 0.4% limit for, wouldn't that be 0.04%? Not sure. Maybe 0.4 is right. For blood alcohol concentration. I wish Steph were here right now. She could tell.
Yeah,
us.
she's the drunkard. She knows.
Yeah,
these
she's
things.
she knows all about it.
I think it's 0.04.
That's what I thought.
I think it's pretty
that
sure
doesn't
it's
look
04.
right. Yeah, that seems like a high percent to me, 0.4. Maybe not. Anyway, United's three major competitors, American Airlines, Delta Airlines, and Southwest Airlines, all continue to follow the FAA guidelines of 8 hours between the last sip and when pilots report for duty. And let's see, Christian Bass, he's a producer. He said, "Could this be the end of mid-trip meetups?" I don't know. I don't think so. It's not like when we have a meetup in the middle of a trip, Christian, that we, really tie one on. We'll have one or two beers and that's pretty much it. Because I think we're pretty careful about what we consume while we're in the middle of a trip, because we don't want to expose ourselves to the scrutiny, unnecessary scrutiny of the TSA and any other authorities, and draw attention to ourselves and get in trouble for having a too high level of alcohol in our bloodstream. I do know that Acme Airlines, years ago, before I was hired, had a 24-hour rule, I believe, which essentially took out every pilot in every trip except for maybe the really long haul trips where you have more than a 24-hour layover. And when I was asking my friend Ken, because his dad was flying for Acme at the time, I said, did that, and I heard from a lot of the captains back then regarding this rule, because we were going, what? How can you do that? And he goes, well, kind of interesting. You'd end up going down to the bar and you'd see somebody kind of in the corner somewhere trying to be, inconspicuous, drinking a beer, and then they kind of look over at you and you kind of just shake your, like nod your head and enjoy your soda pop, your adult beverage. This is what all hearsay, of course. I wasn't involved in any of this because this is all before I was hired, more than 30 years ago. But any stories or anecdotes, Nick, that you can?
Well, yeah, I can tell some of my. It's 25 years ago now, but I do remember that I was doing one of my first, what you would call IoT. Is that right? Initial operating experience. IOE.
We got IOE, yeah.
So this was basically like my line training sectors, and it was one of the first, and I was with one of the real old hands. And we had 24 hours in JFK, and we were due to get airborne that evening. And the skipper and my training captain said, "Oh, I'll see you in TGI's, Nick. We'll have a bite to eat, and then we'll get a few hours sleep and go home." So we pitched up, and there he was with a beer. And I was thinking to myself, well, we're checking out at 5, and that's interesting. So, and we all had a beer and a hamburger, and then we went to bed for a few hours and got up and flew home. And I've got a lot worse stories, but I don't want to implicate people, so it's a bit unfair of me. But the company I flew for had some fairly strict guidelines, and don't forget, everybody has a different metabolism. So you can have one bloke who could probably drink 8 hours before flying, and his body would process that alcohol, and he would have 0 in his bloodstream in 8 hours' time. But you might get someone else who could drink 14 hours before flying and still have a significant amount left. It depends entirely upon the individual, the amount that they're used to drinking, how well their body operates, how efficient their liver is, etc., etc. And if Steph were here, she'd give us all those variables. So 12 hours is just a guideline. It's not a if you don't drink 12 hours before flying, you'll be fine. It doesn't work that way. So you also have to bear in mind that not only do you not drink 12 hours before flying, you have to be able to pass a breathalyzer or a blood alcohol test. And that is actually the meter to which we're all measured. So my airline had a rule that said moderate drinking only 24 hours before flying, no drinking at all 12 hours. And it made the point that this is only a guideline, and it's up to the individual to ensure they pitch up to work with 0 alcohol in their body.
A very good point. The Northwest Airlines captain that got busted in flying in from Fargo into Minneapolis he was at a layover in Fargo, and he did stop drinking 8 hours or maybe a little bit more before their sign in the morning. However, he consumed a huge amount of alcohol, like 19 rum and cokes.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, that's where they get you, right? It's not
Yep.
only the time, it's also what you actually have in your bloodstream. And James in our chat room says we have a 12-hour rule, but it's still your responsibility to be stone cold sober by the time you report for your next flight. So it pretty
Absolutely.
much means you can only have one beer when you're having dinner. Although, as Nick mentioned, it depends on everybody's metabolism, how efficient the livers are, and that kind of thing. But and some states or some world states, the tolerance is like, the amount in your bloodstream is like zero, completely nothing, nada. Other places they have a little bit more of a margin. They may allow like up to 0.04.
Oh, yes.
As Steph just mentioned in the chat room, she's listening. That was not 0.4; it was 0.04. So that was an error in this article.
Yeah,
from
and of
Skift.
course, in some countries in the world, which you have to be very careful of if you're an international pilot, the law will be so severe if you're caught that you could well be slammed into prison for many years for trying to pitch up for work and breaking that alcohol limit. So, while some countries may be relatively benevolent, others will throw the book at you, and you can have a big problem. You might be in jail for many years. So you really, and it's the laws of that land, not the laws of the country you come from, that matter. So you have to be really careful.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh, by the
and-
way, I used to like the rule. Sorry, Dana. I used to like the rule that said you're not allowed to drink within 50 feet of the aircraft. You're not allowed to smoke within 8 hours of flying.
That's
That
what I
was
thought
a
the rule
much
was,
better
honestly.
rule.
Yeah. It was a lot easier to comply with that.
Yep.
I
ahead,
like that.
Dana.
Hey, Nick, I like that idea too. And unfortunately, people don't have a whole lot of common sense when it comes to this topic, and they keep on pushing the limits, and it keeps on making it worse for all of us that are actually out here being responsible. As they always say, it's a few that ruin it for the. It's a few dumb masses that ruin it for the masses. If you get my drift.
Oh, absolutely.
And one of the things that concerns me is in the morning, I like to use mouthwash. That can actually come back as a positive test on a BAC, on a breathalyzer. Not
Yeah,
a
but
BAC, but a breathalyzer.
It won't be in your bloodstream though. So although you might blow an illegal limit, as soon as they take a blood test, you'll be cleared. So
Yeah, and I would insist on taking a blood test if that were the
Yeah,
case.
I would as well, but that's something maybe Dr. Steph would know for sure. But I don't. And when I say in the morning, usually at least plan an hour before, and I take a little bit of my Listerine, just because I want to have that clean mouth. It's not because I'm drinking. So, but our company is 0%. I mean, you can have zero, nothing, nada, not a zilch, and we're zero. There's no tolerance.
Okay. Didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure. I've got my iPad right here. I'll look it up. But
Okay.
anyways, I've always been responsible. I follow that 12-hour rule pretty religiously. So it's just not worth it. And in moderation is absolutely correct. On an overnight, you're not out here to party. You're out here to be responsible. And the next morning you have to be responsible when you show up to work.
Speak for yourself.
Thank you.
And I like.
I'm irresponsible. Come on now.
The
sorry.
Are we finished? I like to take a swig of WD-40 before I show up for work. And then
Well, it's
just
really
kinda
good for you, that stuff.
Keep
yeah.
everything kind of
Oils the
moving.
joints.
Yeah. All right. That's it for news this week, which means now one of the most favorite parts of the show. Oops, not that one. This one. Your feedback.
Captain, incoming message.
All right. Anybody need to take a physiological break?
Yeah, a quick one would be great. Just
Okay.
a couple of minutes.
Very good. I think we've been going for about an hour. I think I looked down at about 8 or 9 minutes past 3 o'clock local. Can't be 2 hours, so it must be 1 hour. Oh, hello, everybody.
We're just under an hour, Jeff. We're about 50
Okay.
minutes.
That's what I thought. Good. Thanks, Steph, for clarifying that to point 04. And Micah, yeah, when I was reading that article about the F-35 replacing the F-21 2 in the Air Force, I'm thinking, I didn't know that was going to be a replacement. I thought it was going to be an addition to or a complementary fighter to the F-22. But what do I know? Don't answer that. Yeah, man. I feel like I'm getting sick. Getting chills. My ears are starting to hurt. What could this be? Legionnaire's disease?
Hey, I got
What are the
exposed to that.
symptoms? But I guess you didn't get it, though.
No, thank you.
That's good. A bunch of people in Atlanta at the Atlanta Sheraton did. I don't know if you heard that on
Yeah,
the
I
news.
heard about that. One person actually passed away, didn't they?
Yep,
So,
they did. Okay, folks, those of you who are still with us in the chat room, are the levels still holding up okay as far as volumes? I know that it's not optimum situation. Dana's Bose in line, but it's not bad. It's just not optimum, so keep that in mind. But shingles, what are we talking about now, Josine? I had shingles, but it was a very mild episode of shingles. My wife had them, and they were pretty severe. Yeah, when you get within about 2 feet of her, and she'd go, "Ah, don't touch me." Of course, maybe that has something to do with my personality more than it does with shingles. Anyway, ba-doom, bam, rim shot. Oh, my symptoms. No, I don't have. Well, I guess it's possible I could get shingles again, but I haven't seen anything on my sides. So, anyway, thanks, Joe.
I'm back.
Okay. Very good, very good. Let me,
Legionnaire's disease? What are we talking about?
we're talking about Legionnaire's disease and shingles and flesh-eating bacteria. Actually, we weren't talking about that, but I thought I'd throw that in there. Hepatitis B and C. I'm in that age group that, a majority of the people that have hepatitis B and hepatitis C were born between 1945 and 1965. I'm thinking,
Oh, is that right?
well, what does that mean? How did we get it? The baby
I
boomers.
guess blood transfusion is one of the few.
Well, I haven't had any
ways, isn't it?
blood transfusions.
Well, you should be all right then.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Unless
Quit
you've
trying to
done anything
scare me out
naughty.
there, medical people. Okay, shall we continue?
Yep.
All right, ready, Dana?
I was just looking up that policy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that you could be completely right. There are a lot of things. There's a lot more that I don't know than I do, and that might fall in that category. But I thought it was, we were just whatever the rules of the country that we're in were the rule that we follow. But I don't know. Could be wrong.
Well,
Anyway.
it says if it's .02 or greater, there will be confirmation tests will be performed.
Okay, so that doesn't sound like zero then. Point zero.
No.
It's almost zero, but .02. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know what the number was. All right, let's start with item number 1. Matthias. My name is Matthias. I'm a German citizen living in Northwest Indiana for over 2 years, dispatched to our branch in the U.S. as a technician.
Haven't they caught him yet?
Apparently not. He's still on the loose.
Damn.
I have no roots in aviation, but my dad was a captain traveling the oceans. But I have my own ADS-B receiver since 2015, feeding FlightAware and also Flight Radar 24. Very cool. Thank you very much for your volunteer work to supply those 2 great websites with your ADS-B information, Matthias. The trip I'm writing about happened between July 17th and July 19th. And please see the attachment. Always happy landings, and don't forget to always have enough coal.
Ha 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 ha. I think that's funny, personally.
Okay, moving on. Hi, APG crew. I wanted to share my latest trip, which should have been taking me back to Chicago, O'Hare, which usually takes 2.5 hours from Dallas Fort Worth. Prologue. On Monday, we received a request to do a demonstration of our solution we're selling. I started looking for flights, hotels, and a rental, booked everything for Wednesday, calculated enough time to be back on Thursday late evening. I booked on Acme Chicago. Wednesday, and that is not our Dana and my Acme. It's a different, I guess, what do we call that? Ajax, I think. Wednesday, I loaded everything I need in my car, drove 1 hour to O'Hare, parked my car, got on the shuttle, dropped my Pelican case at Acme Chicago, went through TSA, pre-TSA for the win, and off to the gate. Flight to DFW was delayed by an hour, but the captain managed to get 20 minutes back. Picked up my car, drove 2 hours to Tyler, Texas, dropped my stuff at the hotel, had a quick bite, crashed on the bed with some TV. Until now, everything was okay. Here we go. It's getting warm. I woke up at 3 a.m., sweating. Bed was damp. The air in my room was warmer than the outside. Air conditioning gave up the ghost, only making a funny, unhealthy hum from the seized compressor every minute. Night shift assigned me a new room on the same floor, and after an hour, the room was cool enough to switch off the AC, which sounded like a CFM 56 at idle, and get a few hours of sleep. After my meeting, I drove back to DFW, dropped the car off, and walked over to the bus to take me back to the airport. They have a big info screen at the bus terminal, and I was looking for my flight, which is 713, which didn't show up. So I pulled up my phone and was greeted with a nice red exclamation mark for my flight, informing me that my flight was delayed by 4 hours and offered me to rebook on an earlier flight. Since it was still an hour to depart, I rebooked, giving me enough time to drop my stuff, security, and something to eat. That was the plan. Immediately after I rebooked on 6/14, I got another message that this flight was also delayed by 4 hours. Well, okay, that's unfortunate, but we'll match my arrival more or less the same time as I booked before. At the airport, after I had something to eat, after walking 10 minutes to Dickey's looking for a healthy pulled pork sandwich. I think he should have used exclamation marks or inverted commas as Nick refers to them. Healthy pulled pork sandwich, which was declined because of a broken credit card terminal. I arrived at the gate. Departure was already shifted to 7 p.m. from 2:30. Did I mention that I got a text from Acme Chicago after waiting at the gate that my original flight was back on schedule? Acme Chicago at the gate gave us more or less informed, or kept us more or less informed, but a few passengers got a bit unhappy after the announcement that the part they flew in for the broken A319 didn't fix the problem, but they still tried to get it fixed, and also the cabin crew ran out of time, and they had to bring in another crew on the next flight from Chicago. In other news, O'Hare had bad weather, resulting into a ground stop. You know what it means, and finally they canceled a flight where some packs are booked on to another destination but had to switch at Chicago O'Hare. The mood of some wasn't happy at that moment. I think they finally decided to scrap the unfixable Airbus, assigning us to another gate. Departure now 9:38, which was shifted constantly by half an hour. At 8 o'clock, I entered the bar at the gate and had some beer. Departure was shifted to 12:11 a.m. After wandering around for some food, I arrived back to the gate, and 30 minutes later, we applauded the passengers deplaning the delayed flight from Chicago O'Hare, which would us fly back to O'Hare. Finally, 30 minutes passed by, and at the 45 minutes mark, we got the announcement that the flight crew ran out of time, unbeknownst by anyone. Since Acme Chicago has only 6 gates at Dallas-Fort Worth, oh, that must be United then. They also don't have the resources available as they do in Chicago O'Hare. They also said to hopefully have a crew available and have a solution in the next 45 minutes max. Very unhappy passengers at the gate, and some people started looking for hotels. Could it get worse? Sure. After 45 minutes, Acme Chicago decided to move the flight to next morning, bringing in a crew overnight and also looking for hotels. The mood switched to very unhappy. 20 minutes later, someone from Dallas-Fort Worth grabbed the microphone telling us that they are still trying to get some hotel rooms, but Acme Fort Worth has a block on the hotels, making it impossible for Acme Chicago to book the same hotels. That was the moment I thought that the passengers would burn down the gate to a crisp. A bit of relief came up after they told us that they have 30 rooms and we were expected to give them to, or they were expected to give them to elderly and families with kids. I got a voucher, and after a 20-minute bus drive, we arrived, booked in, and I just crashed on the bed at 2:15 in the morning. Bus will take us back at 7:30. After 3 hours of sleep and a shower, I felt a bit refreshed. Do you know this feeling? You could move worlds, and 5 minutes later, you struggled to put on your socks. That's how I felt. I arrived back at the gate, had a nice chat with some other passengers, which I talked to the day and night before. When Acme Chicago prepared some snacks and water, we knew that something is not quite right. And sure it was. We received the announcement that they plan to get us out of DFW in time, but they haven't heard from the crew so far. I spotted the crew 20 minutes later, and we boarded the plane and made it back to Chicago with a delay of 18 hours and 55 minutes. Traffic on a Friday afternoon in Chicago is brutal, and I finally made it home after a 2-hour drive. Arrived home feeling like someone pushed me through a meat grinder, but happy to be back. While the announcement, the title, the heading for this paragraph, generous compensation. While the announcement the night before Acme Chicago told us to be they told us that we were going to be generously compensated for all the mess and delay. Well, I received it over the weekend on my company's mail. A whopping $14. Are you trying to be funny, Acme Chicago?
14 bucks. Well, that's
$14.
probably all it's worth. Yeah, that's a little less than $1 an hour.
Yeah, that was a little rude, wasn't it?
It's a complete slap in the face.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you'd rather they didn't bother than
Yeah.
try and do something so dismal.
Just like take everything off the board, pretend like you never had the flights to begin with, and just leave. Oh, man. Yeah, well, thank you for sharing with us, Matthias.
Yeah, Matthias, that was just like every party I've been to in the last 25 years. As soon as someone finds out you're an airline pilot.
Yeah, let me tell you about my
that's right.
story. Let me tell you about my dog that I was carrying with me in the cargo hold, and what they did with my dog. Well, okay. Well,
Wait a minute. What's the famous first question everybody asks once they find out you're a pilot?
I don't know.
What route do you fly?
Oh yeah, what route do you fly? Yeah.
Yeah, what route are you on?
Yeah.
Something to that extent. And the next question is, can you get me cheap flights?
Yeah. So I have these things called buddy passes. Let me give them to you. Good luck.
Yeah, I
And
only
you
give them to people I don't like.
Yeah, you'll never want to talk to me again.
Exactly.
Oh boy.
So can I raise our accuracy rating up to 100%?
Oh, did we?
It is.
Okay.
It is. Pilots will report with no alcohol in their system, so it is indeed
Okay.
0.0.
There you go.
Company.
Very good. Well, thank you.
No, 100%.
All right. No more drinking for me, I guess.
None.
I'm going to drink as much as I damn want.
Ah, shut up. Yeah, no more mid-trip meetups.
Hey, Nick. I guess you'll be Ubering around or lifting or taxiing around then.
Yeah, of course. Well, no, I drink when I can use public transport, of course.
There you go.
And public commodes.
Yeah.
Item 2. Oshkosh wrap-up and 2 questions. 2, count them, for Dana. Greetings, APG community. Just wanted to drop, this is from Kelly Kirk. Just wanted to drop a short thank you for the great meetup on Friday, July 26th. I met so many great people, I can't mention them all, but I want to single out Glenn Taller, for breaking the ice and introducing me to several people. And I also want to thank Dave Abbey, I'm guessing, as well. He pointed out who was who and also introduced me to RH from Opposing Bases. I'm not really comfortable in crowds, and they made me feel welcome. Unfortunately, I could only come on Friday. Hopefully the next time you all go to Oshkosh, I'll be able to stay for the whole week. My questions for Dana. First, as a CFI, what is your opinion of accelerated flight training, specifically instrument? The training time I have available is very limited, and it appears that this will be my best chance to finish my rating. Secondly, what do you think about the Piper Warrior as a training platform? What do you think about the Piper Warrior as a training platform? All of my training and experience thus far has been in Cessna 152, 172, and 7 hours in a 182 RG. The school I'm looking at has a 172 RG and a Warrior. I have a little more than 10 hours instrument time, and the bulk is in the 172. Thanks again for the podcast, Clear Skies and Tailwinds. Kelly Kirk. All right, Dana, you're on.
Hey, Kelly. As far as I'm concerned, flying any of those airplanes are all pieces of junk. No, I'm really only kidding. Kelly, it comes down to personal preference. Boeing, Airbus, McDonnell Douglas, coal carrier. As far as I'm concerned, my personal favorite for a training platform would be the Piper Warrior. I find it to be a much more stable aircraft, especially for instrument flying. 172 tends to be a little more less stable. Not that either one of the aircraft are particularly unstable, but just a preference whether you like a high wing or a low wing. And it's just, do you like to drive a Dodge, or do you like to drive a Ford or a Chevy? That's what it comes down to, because the ultimate end goal is exactly what you're trying to ask the other question. Should you do an accelerated course, and what my opinion is on that. The law of recency is a big one in my book, and that would be the more that you can put your hands on the product and become more familiar with it and use it more frequently and all the time, the better it's going to stick in your mind, especially when it comes to instrument training. So people that tend to not go into an accelerated program, it tends to cost them more money. It takes a lot longer to get through the program. So I don't think there's a disadvantage to it, because you're just learning everything at a much higher rate, as long as you're able to absorb it. That might be the only thing that I would say on the downside. And also, can you afford it? And can you take the time off from work to do it? Those are the questions that I would have for you. And if all those questions are yes, then I would highly recommend it. I often have talked about a program called All ATPs. And I am in myself nor the airline pilot guy are endorsing them in any way, but they are an accelerated program that you go through, and within, I think it's 18 months, you're a flight instructor and you're out there flying and building that critical time. So the faster that you can get through the training, and the quicker you'll be able to, if you're looking to go into the airline business, and I don't see that you really say that here. But if your goal is to go into the airline business as a pilot and or go into corporate or just fly for a living, the faster you can build your time, the better off you'll be.
Very good. Anything else to add?
Oh, and by the way, Kelly, it was also very nice to meet you. And oh wait, I left on Friday, didn't I? Yeah, I didn't get to meet you, Kelly. I don't think.
Oh, you weren't
Kelly.
there for the pub quiz?
No, I was not.
That's right. You left before that started. You left around, what, 7:30, 8 o'clock?
Yeah, because I need to get home for my friend's going away party on Saturday.
Oh, yeah, that's right. All right, very good. Well, I'm glad that you were here. We started to cover this these questions last week, Dana.
I heard.
But yeah, then Steph said, yeah, probably be best for Dana to answer them, since he's asking you anyway. All right.
And I hope that answers them. I hope that's a good answer for you, Kelly. If you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. And on the Airline Pilot Guy website, and send it directly to me, and I'll be happy to respond to you.
Very good. Item 3. Captain Jeff, this is from Jay from PA. Sorry that I missed you and your crew at Oshkosh. It was such a great week. I've been a longtime listener of your podcast and truly appreciate all the hard work you put into making such a fantastic podcast. Is there any chance that Dr. Steph flew into Oshkosh? My son and I took off from Baraboo, I was trying to make it sound like an Australian, but that's apparently something in Wisconsin. Baraboo, Wisconsin Dells Wisconsin on Wednesday morning, and I swear I heard her departing in the Unicom. Perhaps it's just my recurrent base or case of APG syndrome flaring up yet again. Well, let me tell you, I believe that Stephanie was flying that morning, Wednesday morning. She wasn't, well, she did leave so that she could come back and fly the Fisk arrival and fly the pattern and Mike's, what do we call it?
Musketeer.
Musketeer, yeah, but Beechcraft, there we go. Sorry, people, I'm not feeling very well. Beechcraft Musketeer that he owns part of, and I believe it was Steph and Mike and RH from Opposing Bases and Jennifer were the occupants of said vehicle, and you are not hearing things. I'm pretty sure. Oh, wait a minute, Thursday, and she didn't talk. Oh, never mind. False alarm. That was not her. It must be then the APG syndrome flaring up yet again. My bad. I thought it was Wednesday, but Stephanie now in the chat room is saying Thursday, and she didn't talk on the radio. Oh well, never mind. Let's continue with his feedback. Here is the YouTube link to the Apollo astronaut presentation at the Theater in the Woods in Oshkosh last Friday evening. The first hour is the discussion on the research and development that went into the lunar lander. Scroll to the 1 hour mark to see Apollo 9 astronaut Joe Engle and Apollo 11 astronaut Mike Collins share some amazing stories. My two favorites are the story of how Joe Engle rolled the X-15 rocket plane and the story of the polar bears during Mike Collins' astronaut candidate flight physical. Amazing stuff. And then he gave us a YouTube link for us to watch. And he says, thanks again, Blue Skies and Tailwinds, Jay from PA, which is Pennsylvania. Item 4. Robert from Marietta, Georgia, or I like to say Marietta. He sent us a snapshot of an article in American Airlines in-flight magazine. And shall I read this?
Absolutely. It's a great article.
Okay, so the person or thing or whatever that wrote this article in their magazine, American Way, is actually an airplane, a McDonnell Douglas Mad Dog. You may not know me that well, but if you fly American Airlines a lot, chances are we've met. My name is Mad Dog. Okay, it's more of a nickname, really, short for McDonnell Douglas MD-80. My parents like to say I was a Super 80. I couldn't agree more. You're probably wondering why an airplane is writing a magazine article. Well, for starters, we have a lot of downtime at night, but the main reason is I'm calling it a career. On September 4th, I'll retire to Roswell, New Mexico, making way for some youngsters from Airbus and Boeing. My remaining siblings, about 24 MD-80s in all, will also shine up their polished aluminum that day for one final flight into the sunset. Leaving the rest of the fleet behind with its fancy satellite Wi-Fi, bigger overhead bins, in-seat power is bittersweet, the end of a journey that began in 1983. Throughout the decade, we helped launch American's hub and spoke system as the airline's workhorse. More than 350 of us filled the sky for American when we merged with TWA in 2001. And though we only flew domestically, we connected the biggest cities in the country, making meetings and memories for millions of customers. Let's see. In doing so, we made our presence known. Many of you loved the signature growl of our engines. Others liked the peaceful calm up front. None more than our pilots. To all of them for pointing us in the right direction, to the flight attendants who walked our aisles, caring for customers, to the mechanics who kept these old dogs feeling like young pups, and to the thousands of other team members who welcomed us to the gate, loaded bags and cargo, or simply came along for the ride. Thanks for the memories from the bottom of our hydraulic hearts. Of course, without customers, we're never born. You're the reason why we keep flying, or you're the reason we kept flying, and why we can park for the final time with our tails held high. So on behalf of American's 130,000 team members, our entire fleet, and particularly my fellow retirees, I tip my wing. Thank you for flying with us for the last 36 years. In the words of my favorite 80s tune, I've had the time of my life, and I owe it all to you. Mad Dog. Very cool.
I thought that was
Very
fantastic.
Me
Now,
too.
I want to be at 30, I want to retire at 36 years. Oh,
Yeah, that would be nice.
that would be nice.
We were flying a 90 today, Dana, and it says on the all the paperwork Boeing MD-90, and it had the registration and all that kind of stuff. I think it was like 2010 or 2011. I'm thinking, yeah, no, it's
No.
not. It was not made then. That's when it was reissued, and when Boeing, I guess, took over the responsibility of the Mad Dog fleet, or that particular MD-90. And so I'm thinking, well, at least on the little metal plate on the door frame when you walk in, that will probably have the original information. But it didn't. I looked at it and it still said Boeing in 2010 or 2011. So I did a quick search on the phone for tail number November 923 Delta November, and it was actually born January 3rd, 1998. So 21 and a half years, not 8 years. But
You know, Boeing's like a bad dog that wants to go mark every fire hydrant, even though it doesn't own the fire hydrant, right? I almost want to have a little substance in my mouth that kind of regurgitated thinking about that the Boeing ever can claim in any way say that they have ever invented the McDonnell Douglas product and how awesome and reliable it's been throughout all these years. And you know, it's irritating to me. I was going to say, oh yeah, and by the way, so people that listen to the podcast that may not know, we don't have an MCAS system on the Mad Dog, even though it's made by Boeing. So it's perfectly safe to get on our airplanes.
well, there are a lot of Boeing airplanes that don't have MCAS.
I know. I'm just making
Only
a
one,
joke out of
actually.
it.
The
Yeah.
737 MAX.
I'd just like to say that every time my dogs hold their tails high, I know what they're about to do.
Yeah, true. Very good point. This is not good. Breaking news. I'll put in the real news sounder.
No, you won't.
I will. This is from Stephen Ivy. Hat tip to Stephen Ivy. Thank you, Steph. Dale Earnhardt Jr. and family survive fiery plane crash in Tennessee. The NASCAR legend, his wife and daughter were on board a plane that crashed in Tennessee. His sister says no one was seriously injured, which is amazing when you see the pictures. I guess they must have evacuated the airplane before it just started burning down to a pulp or whatever. It was at Elizabethton Municipal Airport in Tennessee. The Carter County Sheriff's Office confirmed to NBC affiliate WCYB that the couple were on the plane, crashed at Elizabethton Municipal Airport. The FAA said that a Cessna Citation rolled off the end of the runway and caught fire after landing at about 3:40 p.m. local time. So that would have been only, a couple of hours ago? Not even that?
Another runway overrun?
Yep. Another one.
Those runways, they're really not big enough, are they?
No, apparently not. Well, I'm sure we'll be discussing more of this in a future episode, but we just thought we'd throw that out there. And again, thank you, Stephen.
I'm glad that everyone got out all right. That's
Yeah.
the important bit.
Me too. Okay. Continuing with the feedback. Oh, this is a good one. Greg writes in. Greg Rule. El Presidente of Rudy Project Sunglasses and Helmets. Let's see. He's in Australia. Was just looking at a captain of a Jetstar Airlines do a walk around his plane. It didn't look like he was really looking at anything. Out for a Sunday stroll by the looks of it. How would you guys do a walk around? Love your show, by the way. G. So.
I'm a
who'd like to
captain.
start?
I don't.
Oh, I'm sure you do.
I do every time it's the FO's leg, with only a very few exceptions since I've upgraded to captain. I've always done their walk around when it's their time to fly.
Now, I think it's important to point out. Now, I guess there are some extremes here. The walk around that we are to do is not the same as a maintenance technician going out and taking panels off and checking cables and pulleys and, well, I know you guys don't have that kind of stuff on Airbuses, but you know what I mean. It's not a
we can wiggle the connections and check the circuit boards.
Take the voltmeter out and making sure you got a
exactly
good drop in whatever.
Why not?
You can drop some water on the circuit board, see if it sparks up.
Yeah, we spit, actually, because we're men.
But so, that's one end of the spectrum extreme, and then there's the other end of the spectrum where a guy goes out there. I remember this guy that was on the 727. He was a flight engineer, and he said he was going out for the walk around. And I swear, I don't think you could have gone down the jetway stairs, ran around the airplane, and come up the stairs that fast. He was like already back. And I'm thinking, I don't think he actually did a walk around, which to me is just unfathomable, because that would be the time that there would be a big, huge panel hanging on one of the engines or something terrible, hanging off the airplane or something really, truly unsafe. If I were to like completely blow off a walk around inspection, I think most people do not do that. I think like 99.99999% of pilots do actually do walk arounds, but there are times when I see people going around and it does appear that they're really not paying attention to the airplane itself. They're just kind of walking around, looking around. And so that's probably the other extreme of a walk around. But I think that most of us, and I think that both Nick and Dana would agree with me, that most pilots, when they do a walk around, it's like a combination of the two. There's some middle ground where you are looking at important things like hydraulic leaks and condition of brakes and tires and the thrust reverser buckets. On our airplane, Dana would agree that we look to see if they have any scrape marks on them, because if they do, then you want to make sure that you let somebody know that it wasn't you that did it, and that sort of thing. What do you have to add, guys?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I always do a walk around. It's the pilot monitoring's duty, regardless of your rank. So half the trips I ever did, unless we had an extra pilot on board, in which case, he didn't have much to do, so he used to do it. Always did a walk around. I used to quite enjoy it, particularly when the weather was nice. There's a very specific list of things you are supposed to check. And most of those are things that are really vital, like walking past the static vents and making sure that someone hasn't left any tape over them or there's nothing obscuring them, trying to peer, although it's pretty hard, into the pitot tubes to see if there's any blockages that you can see, or certainly no one's left covers on. Making sure things like radome latches are done up, engine cowl latches. Not much you can do about all the cargo doors and things like that, and some of the service doors will still be open because the aircraft's often still being replenished, so can't do that. But you're looking at the general condition and you're peering around, trying to pick up things that just might be worth mentioning to the engineer. Indeed, one of our captains spotted some nicks on a first set of blades, but I don't think it was even the first set. It might have been the second set, the one behind. And when it was investigated, found that the aircraft had quite severe foreign object damage and had to be replaced. So that was a damn good spot. And when you do a walk around, if you have that sort of thing in your mind, that this is my airplane, I'm going to take it flying, I'm responsible for it, and I need to make sure it's in my mind as good as it can be at this stage. Obviously you can't check everything because there's a lot to be done to the airplane, that you're going to have to rely on the engineer that does the final checks before you push back to make sure that it's right. But you can do your best. And it just annoys me when people in our profession don't act professionally.
Mm-hmm. And we've talked about this before, Nick, sorry, Dana, that a little bit different operation for Dana and I when we're operating domestically and operating several legs in a day. We don't always have the engineer that does the walk around as well. Now, going through major hubs, yes, usually, but we go to a lot of these outstations and we don't have our own company's maintenance. If something is noted and is not right, then we bring in contract maintenance people to get it fixed. And the other thing I was going to say is that it also depends on, this is the first flight of the day or it's the first time that you are flying that particular airplane. I think that we do a little bit more thorough, not that they aren't thorough all the time, but we do pay attention to more things, such as what Nick talked about, the static vents and the pitot tubes and that kind of thing. Because if we're on the second or third leg of that particular airplane, we've already flown it, we know that obviously the static ports and the pitot ports are not covered because we just flew it. So, it ranges in complexity and thoroughness, actually, I think.
Well, to what you guys said, and both excellent. You both covered very very well. I'm just going to add just my 2 cents on that is that it's in the company SOP as to how we're supposed to do the walk around, what we're supposed to look at, and quite frankly, when Jeff and I at our airline go in for our 9-month check ride every 9 months, we have to go in and we're evaluated really on two things. We're evaluated on limitations, and we're evaluated as far as oral briefing goes. Let me be a little more specific. We're evaluated on the limitations of the aircraft, and we're evaluated on the walk-around slides because they want to know that we know what we're looking at when we're walking around the aircraft, and it's very specific to each individual type of aircraft as to what you look for. And one thing I do disagree with you, Jeff. I agree with you to a certain extent, but I disagree with you because I've been doing walk-arounds for a long time as well. Every walk-around I do is very thorough. It doesn't matter whether it's the first flight of the day or not. It's to me, every time I walk around the aircraft, it's a very thorough walk-around, especially the first flight that I have the aircraft. Now, the second and third flight, someone go out and check to make sure that there's no significant damages, leakage, et cetera, et cetera. So my first walk-around is very thorough, and then subsequent walk-arounds on the same airplane on the same day will be a little bit more lax. But
That's what I said.
You're talking about first flight of the day versus as well.
No. I was saying that if we had flown that airplane, if it were the first flight of the day, or we've flown it several legs, then we know that there are certain things that obviously are okay because we've already flown the airplane.
Okay,
So,
it's my misunderstanding. I misunderstood the way it came across. So
That's okay.
yes,
Don't you ever disagree with me.
Well, you want to know what? Then we're in complete and total agreement, sir. And I salute you, sir.
That's better.
That's the way it should be around
That's
this
the way it
place.
should be, damn it. Anyway, so yes, thorough walkarounds, and Dana is exactly correct when it comes to what is specified, what we are to look at, but basically you're looking at the airworthiness of the airplane. Is it safe to fly? And obviously, if you go out there and there's a big puddle of hydraulic fluid or oil, you go, well, that doesn't look good. There's probably something wrong here. I should get somebody to kind of look at this and see what's going on.
Do I feel safe getting on this aircraft and flying it through the air at 6-7 miles above the surface of the Earth, going 450 miles an hour? Do I feel safe being on that airplane? That's the question I ask myself.
Mm-hmm. Captain Al makes a good point. This is one example of what I'm talking about. As an example, there's no point checking for the gear pins if you've just flown the airplane. But the first time I've flown that airplane, you can bet that when I'm out there looking at where the gear pin holes are, I'm making sure that those don't have anything in them. But if this is my second or third flight on that airplane on that day, I know that, I still look at them because, who knows, some crazy person might stick something in there, I guess.
I was going to say, who's to say maintenance just didn't come around and do an inspection?
Engineers have a habit of carrying spare pins in their damn back pockets, and that's classic.
Disregard that. Never mind. All right, that was a good discussion. Thank you, Greg, for the question. And as Nick and Dana said, there are levels of professionalism as well. And apparently the guy that you saw from Jetstar, apparently, I don't know if that's really was a nonchalant or a bad walk around, or if it isn't, he was just making it look like it was easy.
Well, and that is, we're not opening up, as Nick said, we're not opening up panels other than, I open up the water service panel, make sure we have enough water on the airplane. But other than that, I'm pretty much walking around the airplane just kind of looking at it. So, I might touch the tires and bend over and inspect the brake wear pins and so forth and so on. But, it's a matter of perception. So maybe he was doing the prescribed walk around, just the way that it was perceived. That's a possibility. I'm not saying that's the way it was, Greg, but I'm just throwing, I like to play devil's advocate sometimes, and I think that's a good scenario to play devil's advocate. Maybe he was doing it properly.
Yeah. He may have been doing so, that's for sure. All right, let's move on to Ben. Notice this article Air New Zealand A321 link article below on the New Zealand Herald, which I thought might be of interest, just to also put my 2 cents as well, with the Air New Zealand replacing its A320 CEOS. Oh, I guess the current engine option with the new A321 and A320 Neos. Could this be another possible MAX problem, where the aircraft has been upgraded too many times, causing dangerous pitching and a possibility of accidents? Also, at the start of the year, I was able to attend the New Zealand Cadet Force's National Aviation Courses, which are a 5-day and 2-week course, respectively, both gliding and powered, at Matamata and Woodburn Air Base, Royal New Zealand Air Force Base, where I was able to get both my gliding and powered wings. Nick, do you know if the British Cadet Forces have courses like this? Tailwinds and blue skies, Ben. We'll answer that question that he had for you, Nick, after we discuss this quickly, I'm assuming. The article that he refers to, let's see, operators of Airbus A321neo aircraft, including Air New Zealand, have been alerted by European aviation safety regulators to circumstances in which the nose of the airplane could pitch up. A European Union Aviation Safety Agency has warned the behavior of the elevator aileron computer installed on A321neos can cause excessive pitch attitude that could result in reduced control of the airplane. The fault is most likely to occur on the final approach phase, particularly if a hard maneuver is attempted, such as a large correction to the aircraft's angle of attack. The temporary revision instructs airlines not to load their A321neos with a center of gravity as far rearward as currently permitted, so the weight is not towards the rear of the aircraft, and the directive says that they must change the aircraft flight manuals accordingly. Analysis of the behavior of a computer installed on A321neo revealed that excessive pitch attitude can occur in certain conditions and during specific maneuvers. This condition, if not corrected, could result in reduced control of the airplane. Air New Zealand says it has been advised of the potential problem, which could affect planes with excessive tail-heavy loading. A spokeswoman said, "We don't load our A321s in this way, so the issue has no impact on our operations." This country's Civil Aviation Authority has also been contacted for comment. Air New Zealand, blah, 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 blah. So I don't think it's the same thing at all as the MAX problem and the MCAS whole debacle. But obviously it's something that is a concern to some of the safety agencies, but I don't think it's to the same level of concern and risk. But I don't know because I'm not an Airbus guy. So, what do you think, Nick?
I don't know either, actually. It's a little bit outside my experience. So, I don't know. These normally are just an amendment to a technique until they get a software fix in. So they're pretty standard when you get a maintenance requirement or an amendment to your QRH like this. So, no, I would say it's not a big problem. If it was, the aircraft would be
grounded.
Would have a faster improvement. So there are always a number of these in the back of the QRH that Airbus know about, and they want you to be aware of, and it might be an implementation of a slightly different emergency procedure or a regime of flight that you need to be careful of. And you just take a look at them before each flight and go, right, okay, if this happens, we'll do this. If that happens, we'll do that. And they're usually belt and braces, so it's not usually considered a major problem. Otherwise, the aircraft wouldn't be allowed to fly. But they've noted a problem. It'll take them a while to get round to it. In the meantime, this is what you do as a fix, as a pilot. It's part and parcel of our job, really.
Captain Al in the chat room, who flies this type of airplane, he says the Neos have a temporary CG restriction. It's only a small change, and what's the ELAC? Was that electronic something or something computer? I don't know what that stands for. Is expected imminently, and it's incredibly difficult to get this far aft under normal circumstances. On the 320, you'd have to load only cabin or C cabin and put all the bags in hold 4, which I guess is not a normal way of loading the airplane.
I guess not.
I just think, crying out loud, the airplane that we fly, they still come out with changes in airworthiness directives, even to this day. I think we're in a time now, especially with the heightened sense of what's going on with the 737 MAX, that anything that it pertains to a control issue is probably going to get more attention in the media and in the social circles than normally would be put to it. And from what I'm seeing here, is exactly what's going on, because it's really not a big deal. It's a very minor issue, but it's being highlighted because of the fact of what's going on with the MAX, I think.
All right. Thank you, Dana. Item 7.
Oh, there was another question about.
Oh, that's right.
Air cadet
He asked you
stuff.
something. Air cadets. Thank you.
Yeah, so he was able to say, do you know if the British Cadet Forces have courses like this? So it looks like he had a 5-day and 2-week course available respectively for both gliding and power, where I was able to get my gliding and powered wings. Well, of course, things have changed a lot since I did my gliding courses only a mere 47 years ago. So things have changed slightly. So I'm having to rely on the Squinty Net now. And the Squinty Net says that you would start with a gliding introduction course. So it would be either in a Vigilant motor glider or a Viking winch launched glider. And the course, there are 3 different courses, and it would consist of a certain number of minutes flying or a number of launches. And you would be shown basic things like how the pitch changes the aircraft, how the rudder affects the aircraft, blah-de-blah-de-blah, the basics of handling an aircraft. And if you did well enough at that, then you could be awarded a gliding scholarship course. And that course, once you've completed gliding introduction course 1, 2, and 3, would take you hopefully all the way up to solo. So you would normally complete the course and wear blue wings, but if you show sufficient aptitude then and are allowed to progress to solo stand, you get a set of silver wings. Woo-hoo. And then in addition, there are pilot schemes, which are in powered aircraft. All those are in gliders or motor gliders. And there are nearly 140 light aircraft courses available to air cadets each year, and a further 27 places available at air experience flights. And they're a number of hours in a proper powered aircraft. And then, indeed, on top of that, there are flying scholarships, which go even further. And just for cadets that don't get into one of these formal courses, then there are always the air experience flights, which happen once, twice a year, when every cadet gets a chance to have 20 minutes or half an hour flying around in a light aircraft. And they're shown what it's all about. And so, the air cadets do have a number of flying and gliding courses available to them. So I think it's all brilliant. Brilliant.
Very good. Brilliant.
Brilliant!
All right. Thank you, Nick, for answering Ben's second questions. Mike Smith from Maynard, Massachusetts writes in, I started to write an email, but I figured I'd give you your vocal cords a break and instead send some audio feedback about flying into Oshkosh AirVenture 2019.
Hi gang, Mike the Sonics guy from Boston here. It was really a pleasure meeting with everyone at the Air Force Museum and dinner after. Then Liz and Dr. Steph when we were passing by the motorhome in Camp Scholler. I got into AirVenture on Sunday when others were not, and I thought my experience was worth a little storytelling. Anyone who flew into AirVenture this year knows how difficult that was at the start of the show due to the soft, wet ground conditions. On Sunday, I was south of Osh in Waukesha trying to figure out what to do. The ATIS said they were only letting in Tundra tires, display aircraft, or aircraft with reserved hard surface parking areas. Let's see. The Sonics company is located on the Osh Airport at the East Ramp, and they have a homecoming event the Sunday before the show from 10 to 2 for Sonixes. It was 9 a.m. in Waukesha. I told my wife to drive me to the airport right away. I had a plan. I took off and headed north. Not too many aircraft in the Fisk approach due to the restrictions. The Fisk controller asked each aircraft to confirm they had Tundra tires, were display aircraft, or aircraft with a reserved hard surface parking area. When they asked me, I said, local traffic, East T hangars. The controller paused. He's not a local. Is that hard surface parking? Affirmative, I said. Okay, right turn to 090 degrees for runway 36 left approach. I made the landing on the yellow dot and put up my sign in the windscreen. Local traffic, East T hangars. They taxied me over to Sonex and I parked. It was 11:30 and I was in. I got lunch at Sonex and chatted with a bunch of people. As they do every year, around 1 p.m., the Sonex company aircraft lined up to taxi across the field to their display area. I had already gotten a report from a friend on the other side that the usual Sonex show parking area was dry and firm, so I just jumped into my Sonex and tagged onto the end of the line of company aircraft and headed across the field. The Sonex aircraft were taxied off of Papa to the new Sonex show location, and that just happened to pass right by the usual Sonex parking area. So I let the company aircraft keep going, and I simply shut down, hopped out, and pulled my plane across the grass to the parking area. I was in. Had I not, I might not have gotten in until Tuesday due to the restrictions and then all the saturation of the Fisk approach. Anyway, it was a lot of fun at Oshkosh again this year. This was my 17th year in a row, and just love it every year. Really happy to see everybody, and wish I'd gotten to spend a little more time with you all. But blue skies, tailwinds, and IPAs.
Ooh, I like that. We need to change ours. Blue skies. What do you say?
Forgotten it already.
Yeah, IPAs is all I remember.
Blue skies, tailwinds, and IPAs.
All right.
But I would have to say blue skies, tailwinds.
Blue skies, tailwinds, and IPAs.
And bourbon.
Whatever. Thank you, Mike Smith, Sonex pilot. It was a pleasure meeting you both at the U.S. Air Force Museum and also at Oshkosh. And thanks for sharing your story of how you got in there. This was interesting. John Picard gave us a link to an article from Air and Space Magazine. Air show star David Martin always wondered what it would be like to fly every day. In 2011, Smoke On and Flying for the Fun of It. Oh, that's the caption for that photo. David Martin has always loved to fly. From the time he got his pilot's license at 17, he knew that flying for him was more than a casual pastime. He loved it so much that even as a teenager, he started thinking about what it would be like to fly every day for a whole year. In 2014, he decided to find out. He flew every year, the next, and the next. I didn't plan to fly as many days as I did, Martin says. I kind of relate it to a runner who starts out and just keeps running. That's Forrest Gump, right? That did that? Anyway, seems like all of a sudden it was 2 years after that. I honestly, seriously was going to stop at 1,000 days. I thought, that's a good number. The day that was going to be the 1,000th day, I went to get a physical, and my doctor said, why would you stop? Why don't you just keep going? So I decided, okay, I'll keep going. On December 31st, 2018, Martin flew his last consecutive daily flight on day 1,826. He had flown every day for 5 straight years. Martin says there were a number of circumstances that made flying all those days in a row possible. First, he lives in the middle of Texas, where there's always, almost always 1 mile visibility. The Federal Aviation Administration minimum under visual flight rules and daytime uncontrolled airspace. In 5 years, there was never a day that was fogged in all day long, says Martin. I live in a lake, and the airport is right beside the lake. All you have to do is get high enough to fly around over the lake and come back and land. Second, he has a lot of airplanes, 7, plus a few others under restoration that are in pieces. I probably flew my Piper Cub the most because it's easy to push out, and it's my favorite airplane, he says. If it was down to 1 airplane, that would have to be it. I just like puttering around in it. Currently, he performs in Beach Baron, flying an engine-out performance similar to the routine made famous by Bob Hoover in a Rockwell
we saw him
Shrike
display at
Commander.
Oshkosh.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Very nice. I didn't see that.
He did engine-out aerobatics and an engine-out landing.
Very cool. Yeah. I missed that. Okay.
Yeah, I saw that with you, Nick.
Yeah, it was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's when we were there with Nige.
Yeah. Traveling to air shows and performing filled a number of the summer days in his total time aloft. During the late winter and spring, though, having a variety of aircraft to choose from was especially important. It gets pretty windy in his hometown of Possum Kingdom Lake, Texas. The winds here can blow 40 to 50 miles per hour all day long. That's when he climbed into the cockpit of one of his aerobatic airplanes, a French CAP-232 or a two-seat German Extra 300. The aerobatic aircraft were actually better in the wind, says Martin, who was the 2001 U.S. aerobatic champion. They have so much control authority that they can handle a lot of wind taking off and landing. Anyway, the article goes on. You can read the rest of it by heading over to the show notes, but that is quite an accomplishment to fly every single day consecutively for 5 years straight. That's pretty amazing.
You sure he's not a Mad Dog pilot? Sounds like my job.
Yeah, not quite.
I mean, he covers the obvious that once you start getting into it and you don't want to break the chain, of course, you might be encouraged to fly on days when the conditions really aren't suitable. So that's the only drawback, and particularly he's obviously a pretty experienced guy, and he wasn't that concerned about making a particular number. He was just doing it for fun. But of course, if someone deliberately set out to try and beat that record, then that's what would concern me, because you end up making decisions that you really should not.
Right. Good point. Kind of in contrast with good flight safety, possibly.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Tim, one of our producers, Tim Van Ram. Have you heard of that guy?
Possibly.
Yeah. I think he's from San Fran or Frisco, one of those places.
Frisco, he's from.
Yeah. Betty in the Sky with a Suitcase podcast is so much fun to listen to. In her episode 168, Poof, she explores the attire that airline pilots choose to wear on layovers. Okay, so a lot of the people that listen to this show also subscribe to Betty in the Sky with the Suitcase podcast. She's very funny.
Me, I do.
Yeah, I do too. And let's see. I'm going to play a little excerpt from, and I asked Betty if it was okay if I played some of these clips from her latest podcast. And she said, I hope that wasn't too offensive. And I said, oh no, you're dead to me.
Can you describe the way that pilots dress on layovers?
White tennis shoes, baseball cap, the team or the university sweatshirt or t-shirt.
What about it for the bottoms?
Jeans or shorts?
Or like old jeans?
Old jeans or shorts with a high socks, high white socks.
Yes, the wrong socks.
Yes.
How would you describe the way pilots dress on layovers?
Disgusting.
I said all-American.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But most of them do not have any style.
Yes, that's what.
So it's kind of like baggy clothes and big shirts and Hawaiian styles and anything goes.
I think they are very easy to recognize on layover.
They are. You can tell them from a mile away.
But it's getting better. Some are getting
Really?
much better, yeah.
Oh,
I
that's
think,
good.
But usually you look at their shoes.
Yes.
Either they wear their work shoes, or they wear 10 years old or 15 years old
Sneakers.
Sneakers, yeah.
Yes, and the wrong color.
Maybe, yeah, wrong color.
Can you describe what pilots dress like on layovers?
Duds. Jeans and a shirt of some sort.
Just bland.
Pretty bland.
Yeah.
Pretty bland, pretty safe.
Yeah, that's good. That's a
Just
good word.
would say
Safe.
2 outfits.
Predictable, boring.
I was going with bland.
Unimaginative. Airplane
Routine.
socks.
Oh yeah.
Oh, always jeans.
Usually high water.
Yeah, I was gonna say like
Usually high water because we can see their airplane socks.
Yes.
like
And
not
they-
good jeans.
And a lot of times they tuck in the shirt.
Yes, they tuck in the shirt. But you know, we can even because we're at hotels with other airlines, we can tell the pilots from other airlines. You can always tell.
Yes.
It's like they have a uniform.
Right.
Do you know the game that they play on some radio shows where they show a picture of a man and you have to guess whether they're gay or European?
Because it's so close.
It's what I mean. It's close. So it's like skinny jeans on and skinny pants.
Off the collar.
They wear the skinny
Yes.
Yeah.
Much tighter.
Mhm.
Much tighter. Like skin tight. But, yeah.
And the shoes.
Boring.
That's what I was saying, bland.
Bland. Boring. Yeah.
Okay. I think there were actually some more. I didn't play all of them, but she was a sport letting me play that on our show. And no, we're not offended at all. And in fact, we've witnessed the same thing, Betty. Anyway,
Absolutely. I mean, I used to have a special set of clothes that I would bring to America, so I didn't stand out from the crowd, and they were like the daggiest clothes you've ever seen. I would never normally wear white socks and trainers and jeans, but I always did in the States. Because, if you dress like a European, then, people will single you out as a tourist or a
beat you
visitor.
up.
Exactly right. So I used to clip on my Colt 45 and wear my baseball cap and my daggy clothes, and I used to feel right at home.
I love Betty's laugh. When she starts chuckling, it's just contagious.
Absolutely.
Anyway, Tim Van Ram continues, other flight attendants attest to this phenomenon that layover pilots are easily identifiable, so much so that they can tell the difference between which airline the fashion duds work for. So anyway, he just basically goes over exactly what we just excerpted from episode 168, Poof. If you haven't subscribed to Betty in the Sky with a Suitcase podcast, please do. We'll put a link to that in the show notes so you can subscribe to it. As I said, many of the people that listen to this show already do, and I think that you would really enjoy it.
Betty, when I was born, they broke the mold. I don't look like a pilot. Don't dress like a pilot, although I dress very casual. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Well.
Sorry, Tim. I mean, I don't wear the high white socks. I don't wear the old tennis shoes. I wear usually a very nice pair of shorts and some type of T-shirt or polo shirt. I always wear a cap, and that's in everyday life because, well, I'm just bald, and I hate being bald.
You're sounding a little defensive.
Yes, well, I am defensive, but I don't wear baseball. I wear a flat cap now.
Okay.
So.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. I think it might be time for us to do this week's installment of the old Pilot's Plane Tales. What do you guys think?
Woo. Yeah, let's go for it.
All right.
The Old Pilot's Plain Tale. The Disappearance of Miss Hobart. In the way of a Miss Marple's novel, when Miss Hobart vanished without trace during a journey between Launceston and Melbourne in Australia, it was a mystery that needed solving. Sadly, unlike the stories of amateur detectives that Agatha Christie wrote about, the whereabouts of Miss Hobart was a conundrum that would never be answered. Miss Hobart's last message had been, "Over Redondo Island, all's well." The year was 1934, and along with Miss Hobart's disappearance, another 12 people passed into oblivion as well. Two were Miss Hobart's crew, Mr. Gilbert Jenkins and Captain V.C. Holyman of Holyman Airways, for Miss Hobart was a de Havilland 86. The DH-86 was also known as the de Havilland Express, a four-engine biplane developed from the successful de Havilland Dragon and used extensively on routes around Australia and other parts of the British Empire. What was remarkable about the disappearance of this particular aircraft into the Bass Straits, between the island of Tasmania and the mainland of southern Australia, wasn't so much the crash, but one of the passengers who was lost, and the effect that it would have on the entire aviation industry. The passenger in question had no connection with aviation at all, other than he was flying in Miss Hobart. He was an Anglican missionary, the Reverend Hubert Warren. He was travelling to Sydney to take up his post in a new parish. He left behind a wife and 4 children, one of whom was his 8-year-old son, David. A parting gift to David from his father had been a crystal radio set, which the boy treasured deeply. After tinkering with this clever little device, David learned how it worked, and within a few years was making and selling copies to boys at his school for 5 shillings each. This last gift from his father had launched a love affair with science that would change his life and the world of commercial flying and save countless lives. In his 20s, David Warren graduated from Sydney University with a science degree, a diploma from Melbourne University, and a PhD in chemistry from Imperial College, London. And he became a lecturer in chemistry at the University of Sydney. However, David had a growing fascination in the burgeoning subject of rocket science, and before long he was posted to the Woomera rocket range as a scientific officer. This led to him being taken on by the Aeronautical Research Labs, part of the Australian Defence Department, where he rose to the post of Principal Research Scientist. He had a brilliant and inquiring mind, no doubt, but how was this going to be turned in the direction of air safety? You will, I hope, recall No Highway in the Sky, the tale I told of the troubled beginnings of civil jet transport, when the very first jet-powered airliners, de Havilland Comets, began to fall from the sky. In 1953, David Warren was loaned to the expert panel of investigators who were trying to piece together the cause of the comet losses. As a researcher for the fuels that these new jet turbines needed, it was David's job to investigate the likelihood of fuel being a factor in the crashes and to calculate the effects of fuel tank explosions. When debris from a crashed comet was finally recovered, David's research showed that the fuel on board the comet did not explain the damage that the aircraft had received and that the cause lay elsewhere. However, his exposure to the investigation led him to conclude that the biggest problem the team had in solving the answer was the lack of data. He went back to his lab and wrote a very short technical memo on the need to record data in aircraft that would aid crash investigation, entitled A Device for Assisting Investigation into Aircraft Accidents. David Warren wasn't the first to come to his conclusion. Back in the late 30s, Francois Husseneau and Paul Bodine had created a Type HB flight recorder from scrolling photographic film, which used a ray of light deflected by a mirror to record data. This style of recorder was still in use by the French flight test centers well into the 1970s. It was a single-use device. Once the film was exposed, it couldn't be reused, which prevented its popular adoption. During World War II, Len Harrison and Vic Husband, who worked at Farnborough in the UK, had developed a recorder that used styli, linked to various instruments and control surfaces, which left indentations on a roll of soft copper foil. Also in 1942, the Finns devised a recorder that was used at its main aircraft factory in Tampere during test flights of their fighters, and both British and American forces had experimented with intercom voice recorders which used magnetic wire. These recordings allowed the voices of those brave aircrew
6 o'clock, level, 2 more, 5, watch it.
to be played to the public over the radio. But despite these early efforts, nobody had come up with a complete answer to the problem of how to record flight and voice data for the growing commercial aviation market. As Warren started looking into ways to solve the dilemmas presented to accident investigators, Professor Crash Ryan of the University of Minnesota was filing a patent for a coding apparatus for flight recorders and the like. His original device, called the General Mills Flight Recorder, kept a record of flight conditions by recording changes in velocity, altitude, and gravitational forces on a strip of aluminium foil in a similar way to that of the British device, and Ryan is credited with producing the first crash-resistant data recorder. Back at the Comet accident investigation, David Warren knew that in order to get a complete picture of what might have caused an aircraft crash, as much data as possible should be recorded, including the sounds that occurred within the cockpit. It was earlier, in 1953, whilst he was attending a trade show, that he had caught sight of a German-made miniature voice recorder that was being offered to businessmen to dictate memos. David had acquired a device so that he could use it to record swing and jazz and make bootleg copies of his favorite musician, Woody Herman. He recalled thinking that if a businessman had been using one of these in a plane, and we could find it in the wreckage and we played it back, we'd say, "We know what caused this." Any sounds that were relevant to what was going on would be recorded. The chances that a recorder had been on board, of course, and survived the fiery wreck were basically nil. But what if every plane in the sky had a mini recorder in the cockpit? If it was tough enough, accident investigators would never be in this confusion again, because they'd have the audio right up to the moment of the crash. At the very least, they'd know what the pilots had said and heard. The idea fascinated him, so when he got back to the aeronautical research labs, he rushed to tell his boss about it. Sadly, his superior didn't share his enthusiasm, and he was firmly told, "Dr. Warren, it's nothing to do with chemistry or fuels. You're a chemist. Give that to the instrument group and get on with blowing up fuel tanks." David knew his idea for a cockpit recorder was a good one, but without official support, there was little he could do about it, even though the idea continued to niggle at him like an itch that couldn't be scratched. When his boss was promoted, David pitched his idea to his new superior, who was more receptive. He was urged to keep working on it, but discreetly. Since it wasn't a government-approved venture, it couldn't be seen to take up lab time or money. He was warned, "If I find you talking to anyone, including me, about this matter, I'll have to sack you." A sobering thought for a young man with a wife and 2 children to support. However, behind the scenes, he was given subtle approval, and a new dictation recorder was quietly acquired as an instrument required for the laboratory. When the idea of a cockpit voice recorder was released to the aviation industry, the pilots of the day responded with fury. The Australian Pilots Union branded the idea of a recorder as a snooping device and insisted that no plane would take off in Australia with Big Brother listening. Even the authorities seemed blinded to the potential of the device. Australia's civil aviation authorities declared that it had no immediate significance, and the Royal Australian Air Force feared it would yield more expletives than explanations. Around the world, pilots complained that it would be an unnecessary intrusion into their working environment and that it could be misused by the management of unscrupulous companies to victimize pilots based on private conversations on the flight deck. The bigger picture was that it would be an invaluable tool in analyzing accidents and could only add to flight safety. Compromises would have to be reached which would allow pilots to erase a recording once a flight had been conducted safely, a function that has, on occasions, sadly been misused. The negative impact of his proposed recorder dismayed David, and he was tempted to pack it all in. But he had a stubborn streak, and in the same garage where he had built and sold little crystal sets, he continued with his development of a functioning prototype. When the first little flight recorder was being finished off in the lab, a visitor from England happened to be getting a tour of the facility, and Dr. Warren was asked to explain his world-first prototype. It used magnetic steel wire to store 4 hours of pilots' voices plus instrument readings, and it automatically erased older records, so it was reusable. "I say," said the visitor, "that's a damn good idea. Put that lad on the next courier, and we'll show it in London." So it was that David rapidly found himself on a Hastings transport aircraft making a run to England. You had to know someone pretty powerful to get a seat on it, and David wondered who this man was who was giving away round-the-world tickets to someone he'd never met. The answer was Robert Hardingham, the Secretary of the British Air Registration Board and a former Air Vice Marshal in the Royal Air Force. In a near unbelievable irony, the plane David was on lost an engine over the Mediterranean, but when the crew said to the passengers, "Chaps, we seem to have lost a donk. Does anyone want to go back?" there was a unanimous vote to continue. However, David recorded the rest of the flight, thinking that even if he died in that limping transport plane, at least I'd have proved the bastards wrong. In England, David presented the ARL Flight Memory Unit to the Royal Aeronautical Establishment and some commercial instrument makers. The BBC ran TV and radio programs examining it, and the British Civil Aviation Authority immediately started work to make the device mandatory on all civil aircraft. A Middlesex firm, S. Davell and Sons, approached ARL about the production rights and kicked off manufacturing. Although the device was protected by a strong orange-coloured casing, the common wartime term, black box, for any electronic device, was coined by a reporter, and it stuck. Flight data recorders quickly became a requirement for British commercial aircraft, but there was still strong opposition to the cockpit voice recorder element of this device. Australia became the first country to require the use of cockpit voice recorders after the unexplained 1960 crash of Trans-Australian Airlines Flight 538, a Fokker F-27 that hit the sea off Townsville during an approach after waiting for fog to clear. The Board of Inquiry could not determine the cause of the crash, but one of their strong recommendations was that the carriage of recorders be mandatory on civil transport aircraft, a trend that was eventually taken up by other countries. Since then, although refined and upgraded, voice plus data recordings have become mandatory in all major aircraft throughout the world. It has proved invaluable in helping to solve many air disasters since. Today's recorders are considerably more sophisticated than David Warren's original design and have added features such as internal power so they can continue to operate for a while if the aircraft power is removed, solid-state memory, and digital recordings which are highly resistant to the shock of a crash. They can withstand high impact speeds that will cause up to 3,400 Gs and a temperature of over 1,000 degrees centigrade, 1,830 degrees Fahrenheit. The case therein can also survive crushing, low temperatures, penetration, deep sea pressure, and immersion in seawater or other fluids. In addition, they're fitted with an underwater acoustic transponder which will transmit its location. They are required to be colored bright yellow or orange with reflective surfaces, and all are lettered "Flight Recorder Do Not Open" on one side in English and the same in French on the other to prevent inquiring minds from accidentally destroying the data. In the future, it is possible that self-ejecting recorders that can be easily found and recovered will be required, and it's possible that flight data will also be continuously transmitted live via satellite links. The NTSB has also asked for the installation of cockpit image recorders in large transport aircraft to provide information that would supplement existing data recorders. Whatever the future, Dr. David Warren's invention has helped to solve many aviation disasters and has contributed enormously towards aviation safety. For more than 50 years, Dr. David Warren's pioneering work on the black box went almost unacknowledged. Finally, in 2001, he received the Royal Aeronautical Society's Lawrence Hargrave Award, and he became an Officer of the Order of Australia in 2002 for his service to the aviation industry. He never saw a penny in royalties from his invention, and asked if he felt hard done by, his standard response was, "Yes, the government got the results of what I did, but then they also didn't charge me for the other 100 ideas that didn't work." He passed away in 2010, aged 85, and was buried in a casket, upon which there is a notice surrounded by a large orange square. It reads, "Flight Recorder Inventor, do not open."
Love it. What a great story.
Yeah, I know, and thanks very much to Chris for suggesting we cover it. Oh, I cover it, and yeah, I loved it. Once I got into it and found out a little bit more about him and everything that happened, it was really very intriguing. And of course, it's a great discussion point on why we as professional pilots, not us in particular, were so protective of our environments that we didn't want voice recorders to be recording what happens on the flight deck. And now in the second sort of phase, the next phase, why pilots are now being very protective about having cameras on flight decks. But the safety people say, well, it's vital to know if the information you as pilots are seeing is the same information that we get on the data recorder, because of course your instruments might be in error, which might be a reason you're led into a crash, and we can only find that information by looking at a camera to see what your instruments are giving you at the moment of a crash or an incident. So there are pros and cons, and my personal feeling is that particularly since I've retired, is that every single avenue should be investigated to ensure that we get the most information we can.
Yeah, excellent job, Nick, on this Plane Tales. It was fantastic, very informative as to where it all started and how it all started. As far as video recorders and the flight deck, I think, unfortunately, I think it's going to happen eventually. I don't see it not happening, especially in our day and age. But I can see where the big fear is throughout all the years, and that is, the company's going to use it for enforcement action. We're in a position that we're married to the company. I mean, it's not like we can just go out and go to another airline. So it's.
But they're already using things like what do you call it, the FOQA programs, monitors and triggers and stuff like that are recording things, and you can get executive act or administrative action taken because of doing that. Of course, we have safeguards that protect our professions, like the ASAP program and that kind of thing. But I would imagine that if we had video recording as well, it would fall under that same kind of umbrella of risk and safety from undeserved
unscrupulous management who want to pin us to the wall,
right,
and overly punitive flight safety departments who want to discipline pilots for particular actions. No, we should by now have a no jeopardy safety culture in every airline in every country in the world. I don't think we're quite there yet, but certainly in America and Europe, I think it's pretty well established, and I don't think any of us should fear, because quite honestly, I'm a great believer that if we're doing things on the flight deck that we're trying to hide from anybody, then we shouldn't be doing them. So, I mean, it's our professional environment. I realize there's an argument that no one else in the world, or very few places in the world, do people have such close scrutiny on what they do every minute of their working day in their office. But we're in a different category, and I think we should be accountable for what goes on the flight deck and be prepared to stand up for ourselves and defend ourselves if people question our actions. So that's, to me, part and parcel of being closely monitored, because, after all, it drives a safer environment.
It does, and I can't disagree with you on that. I honestly think, and this is just me speaking outside of the box a little bit, but I think if Ethiopian or Lion Air, if there was a video recorder up there in the flight deck, we'd have a much better picture of what those guys were going through at the time dealing with that 737-800 MAX.
Yeah, good point.
I mean, we do have a good picture now because we can tell by the instrumentation and where the control forces were, but we don't know how that person was interacting directly with the airplane, how much they were fighting, and we don't have that picture. So I think that would have been some key information. And I agree with you, Nick. I think I'm not one that does anything in the flight deck that would ever harm or jeopardize. I have nothing to hide. I fly the airplane and operate the airplane in a safe manner by our SOPs. I'm not one of those ones that do things that are outside the realm of what we're required to do and how we're told to do it. I do know, in the longer haul, one of the things that was very interesting to me for you is while you're coming across the pond, coming to visit us, and you're texting.
Yeah, exactly right.
That's something that forever has now. And now you can do it if you're in the back of the airplane on your crew rest. But for us with the FAA, we can't do it. Look at me. I can look at your picture right now and see a beard on your face. We can't have that, right? So there are different cultures in different parts of the world that, for example, going overseas. I've never flown an international flight long haul, but what do you do for 6, 7, 8 hours? You text, and you read, right?
You do something to keep yourself occupied, so long as it doesn't interrupt with your professional duties.
That wouldn't be the case with us.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to read. We're not allowed to have a newspaper or, technically speaking, or look at anything else other than professional, as far as looking at our iPad, reading the FOM, or reading current operational procedures or anything similar. Technically speaking, we're not supposed to have any of those items.
Yeah, I mean, who would want to read anything else?
Exactly. I mean, who'd want to read, USA Today? I mean, I don't know anybody that would, anyways, or the Wall Street Journal, or any of the. I mean, but those are my points. I mean, I'm not saying that I do that because I really don't, but that there's a difference in cultures here, so that's why I think there'll be some blowback on that. And I'm just playing devil's advocate. I agree with you, Nick. 100%.
Well, there will be blowback, that's for sure. But I think eventually, the people that are pushing for it will prevail, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, and I think if you asked our passengers, they would say, "Oh, for heaven's sake, we need this stuff. If it makes our journey safer, then do it." And after all, if you think about it, they're the people that pay our wages ultimately, and I think it's a requirement. I think it should be in there sooner rather than later.
Well, I think we should stop talking about this and move on to number 11.
Sure.
And this is from Ant Pruitt. Send us some audio feedback and take it away, Ant.
Hey there, APG crew. My name is Ant Pruitt, and I wanted to leave some feedback slash ask a question or two. I won't take up too much of your time because, I'm not quite as enlightened as most of the APG listeners are that have all of these well thought out questions and so forth. And first and foremost, I enjoy your show, and I really appreciate what you guys do as far as being an inspiration to the aviation community. So shout out to all of you there. But anyway, on to my questions. I fly out of Charlotte pretty much all the time, and the aircraft of choice for my airline is usually a Mad Dog or a B717. Now, I know that both Captain Jeff and Captain Dana are the Mad Dog pilots of the crew. Far as like cross training or anything like that, do you guys find yourselves, having to switch to the B717 instead of the Mad Dog here and there, depending on the trip? Is that something that could potentially happen, or is that something that airlines try to stay away from because of, certifications and things of that nature? I was curious about that. And I only asked because 9 times out of 10, I don't know what the aircraft is just from glancing at it, because they look so similar when you see them parked at the gate. But I was just curious. So that's the first question. Second question. Recent flight coming out of Colombia, I believe, heading to GSP. An engine went out on the plane, and the pilot was able to safely get the plane landed in GSP with one engine, and there was no issues as far as like safety to the passengers or anything like that in the crew. Everybody was fine. Just, crap happens, if you will. Have any of you pilots, all of you, had to experience an air emergency? You probably have. I haven't heard it on the podcast episodes that I've listened to, but I was just curious. Have you had any type of serious aircraft emergencies where you said, oh crap, we need to get this plane on the ground safely right now? But that's it. Those are my 2 questions. Thank you again. And also, for the record, I am still starstruck from meeting Dr. Steph several months ago here in Charlotte with Miss Tanya, mutual friend. And yeah, it is what it is. You all take care. Thanks again for everything you do for the aviation community and the aviation geeks and nerds like myself. We'll catch you later.
Well, thanks, Ant. We're starstruck when we, see you. By the way, when he recorded this, I don't believe he knew at that point, I guess, maybe not, that he was going to take on a new job working for Leo Laporte in the TWIT network. He's one of their new full-time employees there. And so I guess that means that he's going to be seeing a lot more airplanes around the San Francisco and Oakland, the Bay Area airports, not just Charlotte, where he and his family live right now. Maybe they've already made the move. I don't know. But
Yeah.
thank you.
Twit's definitely on my listening list.
Mm-hmm. So that's great news for Ant, and we're so happy that we know somebody on the TWIT team personally. That's pretty cool. So when can we get our show? No, I'm just kidding.
I'll say it if you would. Mate, give us a plug.
Let's see. Switch between MDs and B717. When we first started getting the
You still there, Dana?
Excuse me?
Sorry, you just froze there for like 10 seconds, Jeff.
Okay. About where did I stop?
When we moved from, or something on the B-17.
Okay. When we started taking deliveries on the Boeing 717, they were owned by AirTran, initially Southwest, merged with AirTran. They were going to use and operate the 717. And then they decided, it'd be best to stick with the 73. So they put these things for sale, and Acme decided that it'd be a good airplane to pick up for a really good price and a great deal, actually. One of the things in consultation with the FAA, our company said, well, we could make this all part of the same category, along with the MD-88, the MD-90, and the Boeing 717. Or we can make it a separate category. Now, it's still the same type rating. In fact, as many of you know, Dana and I have a DC-9 type rating, although we haven't really technically flown a DC-9. Only a DC-9 dash 88 and a DC-9 dash 90, I guess, technically speaking. So we could, the company could have gone that way, but they decided to keep it simpler and keep the training separated and keep us from being confused by the different kind of, the 717 has a more modern display, like an all-in-one display, bigger nav screen, bigger flat panels, that kind of thing.
It's actually just like the MD-11.
Okay, just like the MD-11. So, I think that they could have gone that way, and I think the FAA would have said, okay, you have our blessing. But Acme decided not to do that, and they keep it a separate category. So we can't, on a trip, fly an MD-88 on one leg or a 90, and then a 717 on another. Now, we can switch between the 88 and 90. They're similar enough that it's not a problem. So that's just the way we do it at Acme. I think that was all he was asking by that.
Yeah, that's all he was asking. And quite frankly, the MD-88 and MD-90 product and this Boeing 717, actually 717's originally an MD-95
right.
in its design. So the original intent was more than likely to have it all a common type rating. However, with it becoming...
No, it is a common type rating.
Oh, yeah, well, so it can be, yeah, well, that is true. It is
a common category.
A common category. But with it being separate, it's just the way that our company chooses to do it. I don't know anybody that operates the Boeing 717 synonymous with the MD-90.
There might be some out there.
I don't know. I mean, there may be. I don't know any other airlines that operate the 717 except for us, Hawaiian.
But I do know that I know some people in that particular department that were talking about how they had a kind of a high-level discussion about whether or not to include it in the same category or not, and they just decided to be on the safe side and make it a separate category. I think it would have been easier for the company if they just made it all one category. Have given them a lot more flexibility, I think. But they decided to err on safety, I guess. But anywho.
That's unusual, actually, and very responsible, because most airlines, I would have thought, if they could legally get away with it, would have chosen to have their pilots fly all the types, because it gives them much more flexibility.
Right.
Well, you look at the automation in the differences between the 717 and even the 90. It's very much a different airplane. FMS is completely different. The displays are completely different. The only thing very common in it, and I just sat in the jump seat on the 717, as a matter of fact, when I came up to Oshkosh, the systems were very similar, and a lot of the switches were in similar locations on the overhead panel. And of course, the throttle quadrant was very similar. The engine switches were very similar. But beyond that, the way the airplane flies, I'm sure, is very similar. However, the actual operation of the aircraft, I think, is a very different beast.
Yeah, I think that we would have been able to figure out. We're professionals. We could
Yeah,
do
I think
it.
you can, but it's an interesting dilemma because we face the same thing on our Airbus fleet, moving from a twin-engine aircraft weighing 212 odd tons to a four-engine airplane weighing up to 359 tons, with different software, different procedures, etc. So, I mean, and certainly different bits and bobs. Now, that people would say, and I think quite rightly, that's a bigger step than just having glass instruments to iron instruments. I think once you get used to them, that's relatively simple.
That's true, yeah. So, there you have it. That's what happened at Acme when we acquired the 717. The other question he had for us was, have any of us experienced an air emergency?
It
Apparently
goes
not.
quiet.
Yeah. Nope. Everything is perfectly safe. We've never had an emergency.
No, time to move on. No, no, never had one of those. Don't want to talk about.
I haven't had anything catastrophic like, major engine failure or anything like that. Have you, Dana?
I'm sorry, I had to unmute myself. No, the closest I've ever had is an oil over temperature, and we had to pull the engine back to idle, and that was at my previous carrier.
Mm-hmm.
Not here. I've never had, other than the medical emergency, which is actually the most common emergency. It's almost, I hate to say it because it is an emergency, but it's almost a run-of-the-mill type of scenario compared to losing a function of the aircraft. So I haven't had that yet. Hopefully never, but
Hopefully
we'll see.
never, yeah. Although we've been experiencing quite a higher frequency of engine failures on our Mad Dog fleet in recent months, and I'm always thinking about it. Hang in there, girls. Hang in there.
Hey, Ren, I feel your pain, man. And I'm talking to somebody that I know that flies this airplane. He's a fairly new captain. He's had 2 engine failures.
Mm. Yeah, well, talking about bad luck, Dana. This guy's got you beat.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. I think we can move on. We'll talk about it over a beer, Ant. Not on a layover, of course. Let's see. Craig, you know what? Do you mind? Well, if I just skip a couple of these, I'm not feeling very good, guys. And
No, I think you should.
And I've got the chills, and my fingertips are kind of like.
Well, if you want to cut
prickly.
it, why don't we just go ahead and call it a night, Jeff? I mean, if you're not feeling good, let's just call it.
Yeah, I'm really not feeling good. But let me do just one more. I think this is kind of cute. Some entertainment from Civil Air Patrol Chris. He says, "Hi, Captain Jeff, longtime listener back from the Catholic pilot days. And I came up with a recording that is a spoof on Deep Thoughts from Saturday Night Live." Mute. There we go. From Saturday Night Live. If you would take about 30 seconds to give it a listen, and if it meets muster for feedback part of the show, feel free to share it. Tailwinds, clear skies, and unlimited visibility. And again, this is from CAP, Civil Air Patrol, and Private Pilot Chris in Atlanta. I thought it was kind of cute, so let's take a listen.
Acme Airlines. A friend of mine told me he was a Mad Dog pilot, and I was fascinated. He said his relatives flew the plane as well, and I thought, does he ever wonder if he's flying it as well as his great-grandfather did? He told me that the hiring department had some pretty strange requirements as well, such as making sure that pilots did not have allergies to coal. He recalled the training manuals noting archaeologists and historians in the footnotes. As we talked, I wondered how he fit all of the needed items into his bag, including the sextant, abacus, and slide rule. And finally, he chuckled as he said that the reason for so many Mad Dog jokes was that Airbus pilots just did not have anything better to do on layovers.
You know, I was just thinking about when he was talking about coal, an allergy to coal. Maybe that's what I'm suffering from right now. Black lung.
Well, there you go.
Oh, yeah, that's almost certainly it, yeah. And you've probably got asbestosis from all the insulation that's coming down from the ceiling.
Yes,
all that
I'm
old
sure.
asbestos you've got stuffed around that aeroplane.
You should. Oh, you joke. You should see some of the interior of our airplane. Right, Dana? There are these pieces that are hanging. I mean, literally falling off into the. You would laugh so hard, Nick, if you saw the inside of our airplane sometimes. The trim falling apart. I should take pictures of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, we need to take some photos of it and send it to him.
And you should see what it looks like behind, like all the glue and stuff like that. It really does look like it's not something that's safe to breathe. Or be in proximity of. It's not good. Anyway, with that, thank you everybody for staying with us on the show here. We do apologize for all the technical difficulties we had with StreamYard.com at the beginning. But we're still working on it, trying to evaluate whether or not this is going to be a good alternative to Hangouts on Air. And I do apologize also for the fact that I'm just not 100% at all. You can probably tell I was having more trouble with words than I usually do, which is pretty common. But
That's usually my problem.
Worse. I was worse than Dana tonight. No,
I
I'm
know,
just
I'm
kidding.
kidding.
But I'm just I feel like I'm coming down with something, so I might have to make a call to my crew tracking people and talk to them about what alternatives I have. One more day of this trip, so we'll see. Anyway, I'm sorry that we didn't get a chance to hear from Steph. She said she did try to sneak in, but the connection sucks and couldn't get the mic to work. So unfortunately, we weren't able to hear from Steph. You should have had that MacBook with you, Steph. That would have worked, that 12-inch MacBook.
She's traveling light today, I think.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be
Anyway.
interested to hear what she has to say.
Yeah, we're going to hear about it. It was a challenge that she took on with her father regarding who can log the number of states, 50 states total, before the other. And I believe that, I could be wrong about this, but I believe that Mike, her dad, is flying to Hawaii on Sunday. Is that right, Steph? And Steph is leaving today, probably just about to leave on an airplane if she isn't already on. And she's going all over the place. I can't wait for her to describe to us her routes of flight and how what she experienced. And of course, she promised that she's going to do some crew logs. Right? Did you hear that? from
She's
her? I
been
think-
promising that for like weeks,
I know.
and she hasn't done one.
Well, we're going to have to hold her to the fire on this one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Sunday. All right. So, good luck, Steph, with your challenge, and we hope to hear from you soon. And if you want to learn more about the show, you want to send feedback, you can send it to feedback@airlinepilotguy.com. And if you want to look at the website, it has all kinds of information about the crew, the community, iOS and Android apps, merchandise, APG Live, the Plain Tales standalone feed and web page with a lot more information about Plain Tales than Nick covers in the audio. It's kind of supplementary material that's definitely something to look at, and other good stuff there as well. So again, that's airlinepilotguy.com. Let's see. How about social media, the social meds? You want to talk about that, Nick?
Yeah, that's since Steph seems to have departed the fix. At APG Crew is the handle you need to attract our attention on Twitter and Instagram. And on Facebook, it's the normal Facebook preamble /Airline Pilot Guy. And you can find our Facebook page there.
And Slack. That's a quasi-social med, which is handled by Hillel or managed by Hillel. And unfortunately, we're just going to have to play a recording of Hillel today. So he's not here with me
APG
live.
listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share ideas and news. We suggest episode and Plain Tales topics. We plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com. Or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled HI11E1, Hotel India 11 Echo 1. And see you in Slack.
Thanks, Hillel. Great seeing you in Oshkosh. And apparently, if Steph were with us today, she would have talked about the great little meetup she had with Hillel and his family. They drove down to North Carolina and were able to do some roller, what do you call those? Roller coastering. And
Roller
I think it was
derby?
Carowinds. That sounds like it's in the Carolinas. Is that right? Does anybody know about that park, Carowinds? Sounds like somewhere in the North Carolina area. Anyway, so look forward to hearing about that when Steph returns. And until next time, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care, and God bless.
Feel better soon, Jeff. Bye, everybody.
Clear? Oh God. I'm so tired. I don't even know what I want to
was
say.
that? What a useless bye-bye.
All right. I
dear.
hate to have you do this in post, Jeff. Bye-bye, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Oh, that's easy. That's easy to do in post. All right. I do. So I always tighten it up anyway at the very end, so to speak.
Yeah, well.
It's in both states. The border goes through the park. Both South Carolina and North Carolina. Is that what she's saying? I don't know. I think so.
Probably.
Anyway, whatever.
Well, everyone was
I think-
yawning. Everyone was a bit below par, but
I know.
well done. Got through it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
well-
sorry, people. I probably shouldn't have even done the show today because at one point I was like shaking. I had to turn the camera off because I was just shaking.
I think we're all below. I mean, I was up until after 4 this morning, and I popped out of bed at 9 this morning, so I didn't get very much sleep, and I'm exhausted too. So
Yeah, for me it wasn't a lack of sleep. It was just it was a terrible
feel
sleep.
well.
Yeah, it was just because I went to bed at like 7 o'clock
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you're coming down with something, Jeff.
because I knew something was going on. Okay.
I would have a phone to crewing and then hit the hay, mate.
Yeah. Let's see what happens here. All
All
right.
right, Jeff.
Thanks, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the broadcast. Thanks
Cheers,
for
everybody.
putting up
Yeah,
with us.
thanks
Bye-bye.
for hanging out for this.
Debacle. Okay, what does that say? And the broadcast. Should not take my glasses off.